Look at those shoes, Angie.
Move that clock
Nice
forward
shoes.
a minute.
Love them. Oh, cool.
You're right. Does Jeremy call those people at home that have an atomic clock?
He was excited. I
That's
think he
why.
was going to
But
come.
this is a good seat.
Feels like a Zone. Oh, there we go. It's 6 p.m. Oh, can you hear me? Are we on now, Lisa? All right. Welcome everybody tonight to our South Weber City Council meeting of February 23rd. It is 6 p.m. right now, and all council members are in attendance. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Petty, then we'll have a prayer by Councilman Soderquist.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Father in heaven, we humbly gather together this evening, grateful for this wonderful city in which we live and for the opportunities we have, the freedoms we enjoy. We're grateful for the opportunity to discuss the things that are important to our city this night. Pray that we'll be able to communicate well and understand one another and be able to make wise decisions. We are grateful for the many men and women who are combating the coronavirus and other struggles going on around us. We pray for continued blessing there and a speedy distribution of vaccines and end to this virus. We are so grateful for the good people of this city and for their involvement and their neighborly love, kindness, and support one to another. We continue to pray for those who serve us in all aspects within our city and within our state. We pray again now for thy guidance this night and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilwoman Petty, Councilman Soderquist. We have Representative Miles is going to join us here in a few minutes, but he's not here yet. He had a meeting until 6 and he's going to join us electronically. And so we will go ahead and move forward. And when he comes online, we will turn the time over to him. So the next item on the agenda would be the coronavirus update. The cases in South Weber City, 732 total and 10 active. The numbers in our city and the county and the state are continuing to decline. The 70 plus age group, there's 77% received their first dose of vaccine in Davis County, which is really good. And second dose is at 31.3% for that group. And then the 65 to 69 age group, who are now eligible to receive vaccines, there's 26.2% that have received their first dose and 7.5% have received their second dose. So starting on March 1st, people 16 years and older with the following medical conditions will be eligible for the vaccine. I'm just going to go through some of these, but you can also see them on the state website. Spleen dysfunction, severe obesity, chronic heart disease, chronic liver disease, cancer, immunocompromised state, neurologic conditions that impair respiratory function, receiving dialysis, receiving immunosuppression therapy, sickle cell disease, severe chronic respiratory disease, solid organ transplant recipient, stage 4 or 5 kidney disease, stroke or dementia patient, uncontrollable diabetes. So that's where we're at, and vaccines are moving along well, and hopefully by the beginning of summer, we hope we can see some reprieve from this virus. and hopefully get close to herd immunity by then. So good news on that front. All right. We will move now to public comment. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and address. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please address the entire council and know that we won't be responding at this time. We are now open for public comment.
Paul Sturm, 2527 Deer Run Drive. I have several general comments for the citizens. The following comments are follow-up. The one comment is follow-up to the comments I made during the City Council meeting of February 9th, 2021, regarding the budget retreat that was held January 30th, 2021. After that initial comment, I forgot to recommend to South Weber City citizens that it would be very informative if they were to read the addendum document from the retreat meeting contained at the South Weber City website under City Council meetings. That document in PowerPoint format will provide considerable insight into what has happened within South Weber City during the past year and future plans for the city. Number two, I would also highly recommend that South Weber City citizens read the Ogden Standard Examiner's article from today regarding House Bill 98, entitled Closer Look into Legislation, and its subheading, Northern Utah Leaders Blast Bill, Broadening Who Can Handle New Home Inspections, by Mr. Tim Bandenack of the Standard. And anyway, this just came out today. And the third one is another recommendation regarding House Bill 98 is to review the Channel 2 story presented on February 19th, 2021. Daniel Woodruff was a reporter and Councilwoman Alberts was interviewed for the story. The news story can be located at, and what I have is the website link in my presentation, and if I read it, no one will be able to find it unless you just see it in the minutes afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Michael Grant, 2622 Deer Run Drive. Respected Mayor, City Council members, some of the Planning Commission members, and citizens of South Weber City. The message is for everyone, and especially for Representative Miles to take it to the state. As I have expressed here and several others from South Weber community in the past, in person and on multiple surveys twice, we want South Weber City to remain a bedroom community with little or no high density housing. With this House Bill 98 being proposed, I want to bring it to the City Council's attention, and especially Representative Miles, who hopefully will get to hear or read what I'm saying, that we want City Council to control our city and not the state. State should not be regulating us. The state regulation is in conflict with our vision of our city. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Terry George, 7825 South 2000. First of all, I echo that. We need to tell the state to keep their you-know-what out of our business. We were meant to govern ourselves, and this is where the magic happens. So tell them to just keep going to the Capitol and leave us alone. let us govern the way we build our city. But what I really wanted to talk about tonight is I'm here to throw my pitch out again for let's go for 7 instead of 5. And so I listened to the meeting twice. So I was really impressed with the conversation that happened with everybody. In fact, Quinn, most people that know me know I don't change my mind easily. And you actually changed my mind on something that I addressed in the letter last meeting about that earlier, and I'll get to that in a second. So I wanted to go over some of the arguments that I heard, or discussions, I won't call it arguments, the points that I heard. So Wayne and Haley, I'm going to leave you out of this because you obviously are 4-7. Have you changed your mind? You can't answer. So unless you change your mind. But so Angie, you said you weren't sold on 7 and you were worried about too long a meeting. So first on that, I've been in meetings that have had hundreds of people in them that have developed war plans in less than an hour. And the length of a meeting and how it is run has nothing to bear on how many people. It has to do with who's chairing it and how well they can run a meeting. I was going to make a joke about, if you don't believe me, how many of you have ever gotten out of a meeting with Dave less than 30 minutes? But I won't make that joke. So, I'm guilty too. So you were worried about enough public interest too, and that's a valid concern. But I think with all the other stuff you talked about with the bylaws and the way you're planning on changing this, I think you're going to get a lot more public interest that want to serve. And it goes back to what we just said. This is our community. We want to protect it. We care about it. And Corinne mentioned last meeting when we were talking about this, that there were 3 people that mentioned they'd be willing to serve on the Planning Commission. I'm now letting, and that's me. So I would love to serve in that capacity, protect all the work people put into the general plan and to where we want to go and under the new guidelines. So I think you will see more interest. So then we come up to Quinn. Now, Quinn, this was like, I had popcorn literally the first time I was watching this meeting, because I was like, okay, Wayne's in for 7, Blair's in for 5, Haley's in for 7, Angie's in for 5. Then we get to Quinn, and Quinn's like, well, I kind of prefer 5, but you made the best arguments for 7 for like 10 minutes. You were like laying out these points. I was like, yeah, he's in for 7. Then when he got pushed at the end, it was, nope, I prefer 5. But where you changed my mind is, in the letter I wrote, I was really strict on no more than 2 terms. And you reminded me of something, that in the military, you always make a plan not based on the people, but on the process, because people will change. And I was really hung up on the 2 terms because of some of the people that have kind of put a bad taste in our mouth in the past and some of the things we ended up with. So you actually changed my mind and brought up some very valid points on term limits. So what I would recommend is you go with all the points for 7 and then add in on the term limits that if we go past 2 term limits, that it's a vote of 4 of the council, 4 out of 5, and they can continue as long as they want. I wouldn't say 5 out of 5 because then one can spoil the cart, but I wouldn't say just 3 out of 5 because we want to let other people serve if they can. But if you go with a 4 out of 5 vote, and they can continue serving forever. So I have changed my mind, I admit it, and that's not easy to do. Blair, you said you favor 5, but you would like more voices. Well, I think we can get more voices. And you said you would spread it out, and I get that. You guys brought up the valid point, and you can do it either by different term limits for the interim as you roll it out, or we can take a year or 2. I got no problem with that. All of you said that. And so I think we could meet that, and I think 7 will suit us better. And then Mary, you used a really big word that I had to look up. You said arduous. Is that right? You said going through the interview process was a very arduous. I was like, wow, that sounds like something I heard once in college. So it's, I looked it up. It's strenuous, difficult, and tiring. And I can't even fathom what it's like when you're sitting in a small community interviewing people and going, man, who do I pick? So I agree, it doesn't have to be done immediately, right? But if we go with the process of 7, which gives us the quorum of 4, which mandates a vote of 4, you're now protecting the people that have put so much work into this general plan. Because it's just human nature. If we're in a smaller group, it's easy for the good idea fairy to come in and us make a decision that we may not really have thought through. So the more we can add to that, the better. And I've already addressed that you were concerned about the too long a meeting. I think if you have a good chair and good processes in place, that will be mitigated. So I really think the more city involvement we can get from the citizens, the more people we can get involved in our government, because it is we the people. But it is we the people. So, and then Angie, one other thing I wanted to throw out is, since you're you're pretty set on 5. I could see it. I know. But if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting.
Oh, snap. Okay, can I address that
So,
really quick?
Thank you for everything you guys are doing. Oh, go ahead.
But where does the 7th person sit?
Well, so if I were ever lucky enough, I don't care if I sit on the floor Indian style, as long as I can have popcorn and Diet Coke. But to honestly, again, that goes into, we're doing a process that helps the city out. And we can't let something as silly as logistics of where they're going to sit interfere with the progress we need to make. And I don't think anybody that serves in this city, meaning citizens that would volunteer, would care if we had to go sit around a table, if we had to put people on the side here. We're not going to care, because we just want to do what's best. We want to help get the general plan and keep this community the way we envision it. And I think that's where we need to go with it. But again, I'm just here to eat more popcorn. I got my Diet Coke over there. But I do want to tell you guys how impressed I was at the way that conversation went and the way you all worked together. And that means a lot to us to know that you've all got our best interest at heart. But I had to throw my pitch in for 7. So 7 will get you to heaven, right? No, I can't say that at the pulpit. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you,
Gigi.
Gigi. Other public comment?
Lynn Paul, 826 East South Weaver Drive. I wasn't planning on even coming up here, but I wish Kenny Miles was here so he could listen to the people that's here. And because of COVID, you aren't getting people here because the bills that were brought up that we need to be concerned about, like more apartments in a lot of the houses, that's one of the bills. And having your own inspector on your house as you're being built, those kind of things are very critical to our city. There's got to be a way for the people representing us at the state to address them. Put it on Facebook, put a thing out where you can go in and vote on them. Because I don't think they realize how everybody feels in our communities on those kind of things. And I'm not sure the governor listens to them if they do. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Have another chair. Just right, Brandon.
Musical chairs. This is fun. Yes, we are. Is there other public comment?
Real quick. Hello, Sky Hazelhurst with Colliers International. So thanks for letting me take a quick minute here. I live in South Ogden up the way. We are here working closely with the Paul family on recent development that we've been working on for quite some time now. So we're just here to add input where we can. And I do appreciate the council spending time with me over the last few months to learn more about the opinions here and what's important to the community. So I do appreciate that. And we have learned quite a bit over the last few months. So I think it's been productive. And so I'm here for any questions or comments on our development or anything else in that matter. So.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Sky.
Thank you.
Other public comment? I know we have one electronically. Are they? Neither have logged in. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Appreciate them. Um, Do we have Representative Miles with us yet, Dave or Lisa?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Well, then we will move on to our recognition of planning commissioners. Rob Osborne and Tim Grubb have recently resigned from Planning Commission, and I just wanted to thank them, recognize them, and thank them for all the service that they provided to this city. Commissioner Osborne was appointed in 2013 and reappointed in 2018. He also served several years as commission chair. And Commissioner Grubb, who's here with us, completed Wayne Windsor's term in 2017 when he was appointed to fill a council seat. Tim was then reappointed to a full term in 2019. Both commissioners helped implement the short-term rental conditional use program, were instrumental in completing the general plan update, and reviewed many land developments. They have given many hours of service to this community, and we just like to thank Rob and Tim and their families for their service to this community. And Tim, we have something that we'd like to present to you tonight. I have one for Rob as well. Present to you this plaque for all your years of service, and then something for you and your family. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, thank you, Tim.
And Rob.
Okay. Next on our agenda is Lane Cap is here. South Weber City owns property on Lester Drive. Lane Cap is with us tonight to present an option for the city council's consideration that would involve city-owned property. I'm gonna bring a mic to him.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Oh, is it working?
Now it is.
Okay. My name is Lane Cap, 8085 South Weber Drive, or 8085 South Juniper Court. Lifetime residents of South Weber, and a couple of comments before we start. Brandon Jones has got to be the most expensive mic wiper offer that I've ever seen. But you are doing a good job.
He's really good at it. Really good.
Got to give him just a little bit of grief, but I would like to say thank you to the city council and to Joe Bloom for not volunteering, running and getting elected to most of the time do a thankless job, and I'm not going to let that happen. I appreciate your time and effort in everything you do. Do I agree with all of it? No, but that's part of life. We can agree to disagree, but you guys are out there giving it your best effort to do what you believe is right, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Lane.
So this is to do with Lester Drive and the connection, and I forgot it, 7475. Brandon, is that the right road?
Yeah, 375.
7375. To put Lester through Joe DeLong's property, connect it to 7375 South. The city recently bought a piece of property there to try to make this proceed. It's a tough one. It's not financially viable. It was a mistake made by who knows. Years ago, I've lived here my entire life and didn't realize it till we started developing our property from the school going west that Lester and 7375 didn't line up. And Lester lined up with nothing. And so it became an issue. It's been an issue since day one. My suggestion at the time was put a cul-de-sac on the end of Lester, because at the time there wasn't an ordinance that said you could only have 30 lots without a second access, ingress, egress. And so we proceeded to develop 3 phases of our property. And in that process, the city initiated that ordinance for the 30 lots.
We're trying, and we, as in my two brothers, me and my two brothers own the property. We have another phase left to develop by the school that has 12 more lots in it and need that egress to finish our lots with the city's new ordinance. With it not being a financially viable project, me and my brothers have proposed to the city what we're willing to come up with, what we believe it would cost the city, and at that number, the Cap brothers would absorb any extra costs from that point. So that would leave the city with what we discussed. I'm just trying to give everybody a little bit of a background on, the way things were back. We bought the ground in 92. I believe we did our first phase in 2007, 2008, and I don't know the exact years. And when we come in for the process, we actually sold the ground to the school for the K2 buildings. And with that process of the K2 buildings, we did our first phase of 6 lots. And when this was all presented to the city made us design our entire 25-acre parcel of property and approved that design. And from that point on, we did 3 phases. We've done 30 lots. But wherever down the road, the mistake was making with the roads not lining up, and it's an expensive fix. We don't believe it's our problem. It does benefit us. One of, I think, the bigger benefits is it relieves pressure off of the school, where the school only has 2 in and outs, egress, whatever you'd like to call them. This would give a third for that morning and afternoon traffic of parents and grandparents dropping their kids off or picking them up, would relieve some traffic off of those 2 roads. And I think it's a safety issue, hope nothing ever happens there, but I think this could help relieve it before something happens. And I think that's about it. I think we're willing to step up and to help the city take care of the problem that's there. And, we're taking a pretty good shot. It does benefit us, but with the cost that's there, it would just make us so we could develop our property and break even on the property. And as a businessman, that doesn't make sense, And if we have to wait, we have to wait. But I would appreciate the city's council and the mayor's input and thoughts on the project. And I believe that's about all I have.
All right, thank you, Lane. That is something that we're going to look at and discuss as a council. But council, did you have any comments or questions for Lane before we move to our next item? Okay. Well, we appreciate your time, Lane.
Well, yeah, I have a question. I was just giving the rest of the council.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Wayne.
Thanks for your presentation, sir. Without having a graphical visual, it's somewhat understand what you're talking about. As your proposal moves forward, how does it address the, I don't want to use the word exclusive, but the easement of the private road that has to be crossed in order for Lester Drive to connect to 73, what is it, 7350 or the 7375? Is it address that, or is that for the city to have to address in addition to proposed?
We've addressed it. The private drive, our opinion would be best to be terminated onto 7375 on the south side. On the north side, block it off so there's no access to be able to go north to South Weber Drive, because it would be 2 homes left there. And I don't believe we can put that traffic on that small of a road.
So the private drive, in your opinion, would be private.
The private drive going north would be to two homes, and would give them access onto 73, 75 to go east or west. Makes it a little bit longer drive for them, but puts them onto a nicer road faster.
Financially, how do we compensate those 4 families for that easement? Is that going to be part of this package you propose, or does that come back on the
I
city?
don't know that there's financial payment due to them. I actually own, my name's on the easement as well.
Okay,
That was our access into a 5-acre parcel we bought.
so there'd be benefits in lieu of cash that would.
I think there's benefits. It's less road they have to maintain. It's less road they have to plow.
But that needs to be worked out. It hasn't been.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they've all been informed about it, and they all have concerns.
Okay.
And we can only go so far at this point to
Understand.
address them.
Okay, so.
I think it's a prescriptive. I'm not sure. It's been too long.
As I understand it, Blair, it's a deeded easement.
All right. Anything else?
Do you have an idea of how many homes you'll be able to be put in there if you're able to connect those 2 roads?
In this part of it that we're talking about, I believe there's 7 lots. And the reason I say that, the DeLongs, kind of the major player in the property, part of this is to give them a bigger lot to build on, and we're hoping a lot for them to sell or save, whatever they'd like to do, to be compensated for their home and property.
Okay,
And so,
thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for your time, Lane, for
Thank
coming
you.
down here.
yeah, thank
No,
you.
that's not an easy task. With your leg how it is right now, I think Lane shattered his kneecap into 36 pieces. Is that what you? 39. Oh, okay. Only 39. I didn't even know a kneecap could break into that many pieces, but
Wowzers.
appreciate you coming. So, all right. I did receive a text from Kelly Miles. He's apologizing. He says he's still in committee. They've gotten bogged down on a complicated Medicaid bill. So he says he will join us as soon as possible, but he's still in committee. So we will move on to our next item, which is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the January 26th minutes, the January 30th minutes, the January check register, and the December budget to actual. Are there any comments or questions on these items?
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes.
On the meeting minutes for sorry, I'm gonna put my glasses back on. For the meeting minutes of January 30th, the retreat, on page 8 of 10, under the paragraph property tax rate, the second paragraph, first line, needs to be amended. It says the financial committee directed 20% of sales tax revenues, not taxes, was to be directed. So I would ask the minutes be amended to say sales tax revenues.
Have you got that? Dave, see that? Okay, thank you, Wayne. Or Councilman Windsor. Any other?
I have one, but Mac may be the one that needs to explain it. On page 41 in the budget portion of it, the check register, we're doing that one as well, right? The check register.
Yes, yes.
And then the budget actual, we have a beer tax allotment remittance listed as an expense. And then on page 53, we look like we have it again as a revenue.
Yeah, so this is the tax that we receive for beer tax, right? The alcohol tax. And there's an agreement in place that any money we receive for that,
we give to Davis County as part of their enforcement.
So it's
And
just a
so
pass-through
it's a
then.
pass-through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We get that revenue and we turn around and give it to them because they're the law enforcement that uses that revenue for enforcement purposes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the change that Councilman Windsor asked for?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? And we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you.
I did.
That was, yeah, Councilman Halverson. All right, the next item is Ordinance 2021-01, Title 10, Chapter 3, Planning Commission. On February 9th, 2021, the City Council discussed potential changes to the city code related to the organization of Planning Commission, including commission size, term lengths, term limits, etc. Ordinance 2021-01 codifies the changes discussed. All right, comments or questions on the changes?
I think it should be 7.
Okay, Councilman Windsor.
I think
there
it should be 5.
Members?
I don't think
Just for
anyone
you,
should sit on the
TG.
floor.
I still hold out for 5, and I'll explain the reason being.
Yes.
If you look at the smallest cities of the cities that we got information on, let me make sure I get the right numbers. Of the 15 smallest cities, 12 of them have no limit when they have more than 5 city or sitting commissioners. And the comments in there as to the reason why, which I appreciate our city planner and Dave getting that, trying to replace commissioners in a small city is challenging. We've asked folks throughout the community to serve on the board, but we're looking to advertise for positions. They basically all are saying it's very difficult to get 7 people in their smaller cities. Another one says we've been that has 7, says we've been operating for a time with just 5 members and actually like that size better than 7. We think the 5 is adequate to provide alternate perspectives and thorough review of submittals. And, another comment from one of the cities says only that it can be tough to find good PC members. And so my only concession would be is if we go 7, then we have no limit. No term limits. But I'm not proposing we do that yet because, there was a comment made about, bad taste in some people's minds of, prior history. Well, I think there's some also bad taste in the mind of some people that planning commissioners and maybe other elected officials may be targeted or may be attacked if they have a differing opinion. And if we have 7 people, we're going to definitely have more differing opinions. And so I would propose we have 5 and let it sit for a couple of years and make sure that we are being, supportive of our elected officials and our appointed officials. And at that point, then I would be open to considering 7. But right now, I just struggle to see us expanding it to 7 with the experience of cities that already have numerous, have more than 5. They're the ones that have lived it. We haven't. Grass is always greener on the other side till you get there. And so I'd like to still stay with 5 with the 3-year change, but would be open to moving to 7 at a later date if it looks like it is a feasible and appropriate change.
Okay.
The other, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
The other thing about it is just at the sheer numbers. If you have 7 commissioners changing out, every 3 years, if they only served 1 term, then in a 20-year span, we're going to need at least 46 people, new people. Are we going to have 46 people wanting to be part of the planning commission? I right now don't see that happening. And even if we allowed them to serve the 2 terms, 6 years, you're still looking at as many as 25 people that would need to volunteer to do that. And so I just would like to see how it works with the 3-year. Are we really going to have a lot more people wanting to serve? I hope so. And then how well are they appreciated and supported by our community?
Thank you, Councilman Silverquist. Other comments?
I've got them. I'll go.
Go for it. Okay.
You're good.
So I still advocate for 7. I feel like this is set up in a way that really will work well. We don't have to. Oh, how about now? Okay. This is going to set up for what outside of where the 7th will sit. This is really set up to work out well. We can move it to 7 and we can add it up slowly, like we discussed this last time. So we start with 5. That will require our planning commission. If going forward, we have 4 voting members, but we only have, what month is it? February. We only have like 9 months left of this year. That's 9 more meetings where we need to have four members for sure attending. And with our virtual ability now, I think that that's more than doable. Starting in 2022, we can add 2 more and then add 2 more in 2023. I feel like that's something we can build up to slowly and easily and not have to wait. We've done this 5. So I feel like we know what 5 offers us. What we don't know is what 7 will offer us. And to rebut to Quinn respectfully, of the cities that I looked at, we had 13 cities that were very comparable in our population, all with 7. And Angie brought up a great question the last time. How well is that working? Obviously, we don't know, but they haven't changed it. They've been doing the same thing for decades, which goes into my next point. I feel like this isn't anything set in stone. If our future councils find that this is being hard on them, the option to change it is there. And we've given it a shot and it didn't work out. I don't know that that will necessarily be the case. I don't believe that it will be. I think if these smaller cities have been able to get 7 members for 30 plus years, we will be able to as well. But if in the end, it ends up being something that's difficult for the city, our future councils can change that. I do like what you're bringing up, Quinn, as far as the term limits. And I am open to that ability because I can see that if we have a really good planning commission member who would like to continue, that they could be able to. But I like what TG actually brought up of the 4/5. So it'd be a majority of the council. So 4 out of 5 of us would need to agree to continue them on. I feel like that would be a great way to balance things, not just a majority, not just a simple majority, but 2/3 majority. I think that's something that we could definitely look into and allow that term limit to not be on there while still keeping a little bit control on there as well. And my final thought is I heard a lot last time of, well, I'm scared that this will happen, or I worry that this will happen. And I just don't feel like decisions should be made out of fear. We should make them out of reality and out of what's available to us. If we need to change course, we can. This isn't set in stone, as I said. So if we find that this isn't working, we can change course, but we will never know what this will do for us if we never try. And I think that it's worth the try. I think that our citizens are asking us to please let us try this. And I don't think that there's any harm in that. Although the worst that could happen is we have a few lessons learned, which will bring us more experience and more wisdom, and we can go forward with it in that case. So I'm still for 7. I'm totally okay with, staggering that through the years and we slowly add up to it. It will mean that our current planning commission needs to have 4 members there. And so we need to make sure until then, till we get up to our 7, that is going to be something that's doable. But I think that for the reasons we discussed and the pros to what we brought up at our last meeting, those all still stand for me. And fear is not a good enough reason for me to say no to this. So I'm with 7.
Thank you, Councilwoman Alberts. Other comments?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to chime in a little bit. I don't have a lot more to say than what I did last meeting. Other than, for me, it's not a fear thing. It's more of we're making changes. I don't think the fact of having 5 or 7 is going to, I don't know if I want to say it. I mean, I think that the complaints that people have had has not had to do with the number of people. I think 5, and I truly respect what the current planning commission has done over the years. And I think it can be done with 5. I feel like we're making those changes. I think just like you said, the future council can change it if we think 5 that we're making the term changes, we're bringing in more. It's going to have less. They can't serve 5 terms in a row. It's going to be, to me, we're making the changes in the positive direction. Let's get our planning commission working. And I'm still at 5. It's not a big enough issue to me. If this council says, hey, we want to go to 7, I don't think it's that big of an issue. That's why I said what TG was referring to is, I want to get more people involved. Well, I do. We have a lot more people involved than what we used to have. Does that mean they need to sit on the planning commission? Not necessarily. They can run for city council. They can take my seat, and they can do other things. I mean, we don't have to put them all on those type of things. So I think there will be a change in the future. And yeah, even if we have 7, we can run with 5. That's why it's not a big deal to me. I'm not scared if we don't have enough people show up. We'll run with 5. Who cares? The city will still function. But I don't see the need to change it to 7. I just don't. So.
Thank you, Councilman Halverson.
You want to have the last word, don't you?
I sure do.
I can read you. I appreciate all the comments that were presented to this point. I'm still with the position of 7. I think it's providing the opportunity. I think the need, if there is a need, would be to have a comprehensive voice. Having that additional voice brings in more perspective. I don't think it clouds or dilutes the conversation. It just provides more diversity and more well thought through conversation. You still have to have the 4. If you have 7, you still have to have 4 to be able to pass motion forward. You can still operate with less. I think you ease into it, as it's been discussed earlier. You don't have to go to 7 today or in March. I think you can work up to it. And I think there's enough synergy now after we've after we've completed the general plan. There's a lot of interest, and I think with the excitement that's drawn up with some of these changes, the spirit of volunteering or volunteerism is going to grow, and people are going to want to be part of something that is productive, something that's good, and it comes from the leadership that's shown by this council. As we move forward with good decisions, it's going to inspire more to want to be part of that synergy. And I think 7 is very doable. I do think Quinn made a good point that term limits should be something that we would sit to the side and allow those, if you have a good council member, move forward. As not to reiterate what was said before, but I think that's something to consider. You can easily ease into it as much as you can ease out of it. I'm suggesting if we're going to make a change to the code, let's not keep making changes to the code. Let's make it today, make it 7. And if we have to work back, we can always work with less, but the code still says 7. You don't have to keep changing the code every time.
Thank you,
You can have the last word.
Well, I appreciate everybody's comments and the discussion on it. I still feel like the changes that have been made are what the city needs right now. So I still say 5. It's interesting. Term limits were addressed because that was something that people were discussing of wanting changed, and now this is what has been drafted, and now there's talk about maybe don't do term limits. So I think that's interesting to note on there, but I appreciate everything Quinn says, and to the point that we have a lot of public interest, it's fantastic. And if we have new term or new commission member positions opening up every year or so, then that gives plenty of people opportunity to watch the planning commission and then apply for it. So I would maintain my position at 5.
Thank you, Councilwoman Petty. I want to add my feelings to this, and I'm just reiterating some of the thoughts that were said. We have seen, we've had a concern, we've seen a problem. We've made a number of changes. We have a new city planner. We have 2 new planning commission members, or hope to today. We have new term lengths, new chair rules, a new chair will be in place this next month. I think that's a lot of changes, and I think that's plenty for now. And then if we find that we still have issues, we can always make other adjustments, but that is my opinion. So, is there any other concerns with any other parts of this code change, or is it just the amount of the term, or
I did have one
number
comment,
of members? Sorry.
one comment on the text of it on page, 10-3-4 under organization. We added the word bylaws. Let me get to it.
They're,
So yeah, on the original,
yeah, they're supposed to adopt a new set of bylaws because they don't have a current set of bylaws.
right, yeah, and we spell out, it just says the planning commission shall adopt such bylaws, policies, and procedures. So we added bylaws before policies and procedures, but later in that same paragraph, we also say policy and procedure shall be approved by the city council, but bylaws is not. Should the bylaws also be approved by the city council or only by the planning commission? What was meant there?
I believe that in the discussion at the last meeting, the council was pretty well unanimously on board that the planning commission should set their own bylaws so that they are the ones kind of, since they, to give them that authority to dictate how their meetings run. So that probably should be changed.
Well, I'm not sure I understood that correctly then.
I think that's the way it's worded, isn't it?
It's worded saying, yeah,
okay.
it is worded
Sorry.
that way. So you didn't want the
Oh.
city, or excuse me, yeah, the city council to have to approve the bylaws, only procedures and,
Yeah. Sorry if I misunderstood that at first.
only policies and procedures.
Yeah.
So the bylaws will be completely autonomous to the planning commission only.
Yeah, when I drafted it, it was done with the understanding Sherry just expressed that the bylaws would be set by the planning commission. I don't have a strong preference there if the council would like to review them. It was just drafted with that understanding, and it could be amended if the council thinks otherwise.
So my question to the council is, do you want to review them? Do we need to approve them, or are we fine?
What are the differences between bylaws and policies? And well, I guess procedures I get, but what would be the difference between those two?
The bylaws would speak to the process they would follow for nominating and selecting a chair and a vice chair. For example, conducting their meetings, meeting attendance, participation within meetings, things of that sort. So bylaws tend to be procedural only, and policy may include other things about the substance of what they would do.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other concerns or questions? Yes.
I have a question, same paragraph toward the end, last sentence, it talks, original text, a member of the planning commission may be requested to attend a city council meeting, ... to give a verbal report. I thought we had discussed that we wanted that person to, not may, but shall report on those votes that come forward. Who that member is, I think can be clarified in the bylaws, would be what I'm thinking, but leaving the word may in there leaves it up to them if they're going to report on it or not. Does this council want to have a report for every, zone change or development agreement or development that's approved or recommended by the planning commission, a report come with that? Or do we leave it up to them if they want to give it or not?
I think it's beneficial to have them report so everyone knows what's going on in the city and hear it straight from the commission.
So the question would be, should the word may be changed to the word shall or something more definitive?
Can I
think
ask
so.
a question just to make sure I'm understanding? Are you talking about a written report or a verbal report?
My understanding was a verbal, as it states right there, make a verbal report on the planning commission recommendations.
My personal feeling is that that's a little bit of a holdover from just previous practice, that it required a verbal report in a city council meeting. I don't know if that's not a necessary requirement for how to report, but if you want a verbal report, then it would stay exactly the way that it is. The question is whether you want to dictate shall or leave it as may. Either way, the additional definition comes in the bylaws of who would do that and frequency and whatnot.
In my opinion, I kind of would like it as may, then whoever is the current mayor can request that to be done or do it a different way according to how they want the report to go.
I can go with that.
So are we leaving it at May?
That's fine.
That's what I'm gathering.
There was discussion along the same lines about whether a report shall be required of who voted what way within the planning commission. That language was in the prior text and remains. We added the clarification of individual member of the planning commission voted. So you would receive a written report of how each individual would vote.
So I was just wondering, I don't know how necessarily we would write this up, but where it says the verbal report of the planning commission's recommendations, I feel like I would like to expound on that a little bit as we discuss with the code changes. If the planning commission is seeing things in a code sense that we need to adopt or update or change, this is when I would want that verbal report made. And I'm just wondering if this current language would be that they would come and recommend and maybe not have that foresight on them. I mean, is it something that we want to specify in here so they can understand it's not just whatever they recommended to us, but also whatever they're seeing that they feel we need to address?
Haley, if I may, we're currently as staff drafting the bylaws that the planning commission could then review and adjust how they see fit before any final approval. But as part of that, we're including that concept. So it is written specifically in the bylaws as two separate things. One is a report on the action taken, and then the second is any issues or concerns, any code related items that they feel council needs to provide attention to.
That's great for me. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, then do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2021-01?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2021-01, Title 10, Chapter 3, Planning Commission.
Thank you, Councilman Halverson. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment?
I'd just like to add for the record, my vote will be no, just because of the 7 members.
Thank you, Councilwoman Alberts. We will have a roll call vote then, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Okay, 3 ayes and 2 noes. The motion carries. Thank you. All right. We are now joined by Representative Miles. Thank you so much for joining us today. It sounds like you've had a grueling day already. I guess it's 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry to keep you waiting. It doesn't look like you waited, though, and I'm glad for that. I knew you would have lots of business, but we just barely completed our Health and Human Services Committee meeting, and with only about we end next Friday night at midnight, so we've only got about eight more days to get ourselves in trouble. So all us legislators are trying feverishly to get ourselves in trouble. So
You're doing a great job.
I'm sure, but I appreciate the invite to be here with you, and look forward to your input on some important bills. I know we had a chance to talk a little bit about the affordable housing units and that, and I know there was an issue about I think the billboards and that you wanted to discuss a little bit, but other than that, I'll just leave it up to you and kind of let you direct what you'd like me to address, or if you have questions, or if you just want to inform me what I ought to be aware of.
Well, we appreciate that, Representative Miles, and thank you for consenting to join our meeting tonight. And I will just turn the time over to the council to ask questions or make comments. So who would like to go first?
I'll go. Thank you, Representative Miles, for being here. So I just wanted you to let you know that we had a few public commenters come in that wanted you to know that they want you to keep local control. The state continues to offer up these mandates and these restrictions and these laws that are impending on our local control. And it's set up to work best locally, and that's what they want. So I wanted to relay that onto you. I have great concerns about House Bill 98.
Can I just make a quick comment, because I agree with you. It's so interesting because when we meet as a legislative body, we're constantly complaining about federalism and the federal government trying to take away our state's control. And yet I understand, and I think we need to be reminded constantly to keep it at the local level where you're at. And it's so easy to justify sometimes and say, well, we have to make this decision for the state as a whole, and we can't just take into account our one city or our one town that, or what, but that's, I don't think that's a fair justification. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, thank you. I have grave concerns about House Bill 98, and you brought up the other bills that I also am concerned about, but I'll put my focus on 98 for right now.
Okay.
That is the building inspection amendments. Part of that bill includes allowing a developer to have building inspections be chosen by the developer. I do know that he's bringing forth a substitute. That's what I've been told every single time I have concerns about this bill. I don't know that I can speak on behalf of all my council members. I will speak for myself here. This bill is non-negotiable to me. There isn't any kind of substitute in this bill that is going to make it work. It's a bad bill. No matter how bad you change it, it's not going to make it a good bill. It's a bad bill. And I hope that if whatever comes out of committee, that you'll say no to it. I want to address a couple things that Representative Ray is trying to accomplish here. First, he mentions moderate income housing relief. I don't know how this bill is going to achieve that. There is no way that he can guarantee that. There's no way that it really will impact that. And at the end of the day, the only people who can really address moderate income levels are developers themselves. If they want to take a hit on the house and make it a lower amount, then that's all for them. They can do that. But cities, whether we do the inspection or whether the developer does the inspection, that's not going to change moderate income housing. Secondly, there's a building inspection shortage. So no matter who does the building inspection, it doesn't matter if it's the city, it doesn't matter if it's the developer. If there's a shortage of building inspectors, and that is the reason why it's taking longer than those 3 days or 2 weeks, then it's not going to change if the developer gets to choose one instead. Thirdly, I know that the substitute has talked about possibly changing that the developer can't choose his inspector. I haven't seen that substitute yet, but I still feel that this is a huge conflict of interest. We could really relate this a lot to our housing crisis that happened 10 years ago when we had real estate agents working with appraisals. And that caused a big problem. And now we've had regulations put in place where real estate agents can't speak with appraisers and things because of the problem that it created. And I think that this could be the same case. Additionally, in that bill, he has some architectural restrictions for cities regarding certain types of building material, square footage requirements. A lot of these things in our city, and I'm going to guess in most cities, are based off the covenants that the development is put in. I don't know if this bill is going to supersede those covenants or not. If it does, I think that's a very dangerous thing to do. People move into neighborhoods expecting to have a neighborhood look nice and kind of fit the neighborhood. If you remove that ability, then that's going to change the dynamic of our neighborhoods. But additionally, again, this is local control. This should be up to the municipalities. This should be up to the citizens who live here, and we should be able to have that kind of power over our restrictions and things. I don't know how that's going to help the moderate income housing, which is what Representative Ray continues to hit on. In fact, he blames municipalities for causing this moderate income housing crisis. I disagree with that wholly, and this bill is just bad, and I hope that you will vote no to it.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Without addressing the merits of the bill, I was just looking on my phone to see it's actually been assigned to House Political Subdivisions Committee. And the interesting thing about it, Ms. Alberts, is that it was assigned there on February 1st, which is what it means is for some reason they have not chose to hear it yet. Normally, when it gets signed to a committee, it gets a hearing date within a day or two. So I don't know what they're doing with it. It may be like you said, that he's working on a substitute or some amendments. Or one of my biggest frustrations of serving down here in the legislature is the flurry of bills that sometimes come out in the last day or two. For this, and I'm not accusing or suggesting that this might happen, but far too often there's a number of bills that just get thrown at us at the last minute. And I appreciate the red flag on this. Representative Ray did address it we have a Northern Utah Caucus where all the Northern Utah representatives get together once a week for about an hour and a half and discuss important bills. And of course, sometimes those bills are bills that we are sponsoring ourselves. Doesn't necessarily mean it's important to everyone else, but he did raise it then, and he makes it sound like a no-brainer, but I'm not sure everyone bought off on that. So I appreciate your concerns and the specifics.
Well, thank you. And just one more thing I would like to add is that he did put in his newsletter for the Northern Wasatch Home Builders Association that he had a lot of support from the Senate. I don't have it all right here for me, so I'm going to do my memory of it, but they're also all part of the Northern Wasatch Home Builders Association. And that's just a huge conflict of interest. And they're all great people up in the higher areas of the legislature. And I hope that we all can see that for what that is. That's a conflict of interest. And there is one person or one people that this bill will benefit. And it's not the citizens, and it's not the municipalities, and it's not the affordable housing, it's the developers. So I hope that you're able to see that.
Thanks for the information.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Miles, this is Councilmember Windsor. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate the invite that we extended to you. You accepting that. I appreciate your response or your vote on House Bill 82 and voting in the negative, listening to us and in response to that. Even though it did pass the House, I do appreciate you standing up for the small communities. We all appreciate.
Can I just say real quick, your position was, and hearing that, and your debate with the Representative Ray is what really swayed me. And Ray Ward, he gets it too. I went to him and I said, I'm sorry, Representative Ward, but You just didn't get South Weber on. He goes, I know I'm not going to convince everyone. And I appreciate that they raised those issues. So he's a good legislator. He just sees things a little bit different than some of the rest of us. So I appreciate you taking the time to help educate me and him, because I think it'll make a difference, even if it passes in the long run, because now he's aware of some of those specifics that he wasn't prior to that.
Well, thank you for that feedback. Much appreciated. Not to repeat what Councilwoman Alberts has shared. We just put a quarter in there and let her go, and she does a very good job. So we appreciate her. Sorry, I'm only on 3 hours of sleep, and so she knew I was going to give her a one-liner today. Couple things. I got a question in here, but just wanted to comment on House Bill 98. In my background, there's called the development triangle. It's an equilateral triangle. And each side of that triangle, when you talk about building, has an importance. One side is cost, one side is time, and one side is quality. You can control two, and the third floats. With this bill, if you've got builders who their objective is to be in business, they're to make money. And if you're trying to squeeze the time in which to turn things around, quality is going to suffer. And who's going to be left holding the bag is the cities. And that's part of the problem with this bill. It's a bad bill altogether. It needs to be scrapped and start over. My general question to you, sir, is in the last couple of years, there seems to be a stronger sentiment or push with the legislation trying to put more and more control. Ultimately, the state has the ultimate land authority. I get it. But why is it they complain that the federal government's overstepping, and yet they are, and I know you're not speaking toward this, but the legislation as a whole, why are they being hypocrites, and doing the exact same to these cities? It's like you're being punished if you're on the Wasatch Front. You're being punished being on the Wasatch Front, and you have to have high density housing, and you have to have affordability. It's almost like the governments are trying to legislate affordability, and I don't know how a government can legislate affordability. I just don't see it happening. They get it wrong every time. So I appreciate how your perspective is on representing your local cities and the smaller fifth class cities at the legislature, sir.
Well, thank you. The only thing I can, and I haven't really thought about it, as you raise that question, I think the general feeling out there is that we're headed toward a crisis even worse than we have now, as far as whether it's affordable housing, whether it's our infrastructure for roads or water or whatever. And I kind of get the impression, and I don't feel this way, but that I get the impression on the state level maybe that we've got to help the cities and towns along because they're only interested in their one little piece of the pie. And it's easy to justify and say, we've got to look at the state as a whole. And so it's whether if it comes down harsh on the Wasatch Front, then so be it. Now, that's just a wild guess, but that's the impression I get sometimes down there is we've got to prod, and yet I think our cities and towns are doing some wonderful things, are coming up with some very creative ideas. Representative Lisenby reminds us of them often. She's a really good voice for city and staying out of city control because she served on a city council for so long, and she's constantly trying to remind us of that. But I don't dispute what you're saying. I get that there is a general feeling that way, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Yep.
All right. Any other council members that would like to speak out?
Mayor, while they're deciding, can I just say, I don't know how much you guys follow along with the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns and that. I mean, we get a list of the bills that they're in favor of. I mean, we get that from probably 20 different organizations, right? I'm not sure how often you as a council look at that, but I would love to receive something and have you, maybe you as a council, or whether it's South Weber or Washington Terrace, and just highlight maybe 10 of these, and especially if you disagree with the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns. You know, they took a neutral position on the single family housing modification. And I think we all know they would rather not see it happen, but I think it was just political pressure in that. But it was nice to know that your feeling was even so much stronger than that, because sometimes we do tend to sometimes lump the cities and towns together and think, well, the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns have spoken, so we can rely on that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And yes, I appreciate you talking about that. We actually, the two council members that you've heard from, Councilwoman Alberts and Councilman Windsor, they are our legislative policy committee, as well as myself and our city manager. And so we attend a lot of those meetings online and listen to what the league has to say. But yes, they have to kind of have a blanket approach with all of the cities involved. And oftentimes, you know, individual cities have strong perspectives that don't always exactly align with what the ULCT is considering. And so I appreciate that, and we would love to give you more of our feedback. And HB 98 is a big bill that they have been talking about a lot. And of course, the two billboard bills, and then HB 82, which you voted against. And I'd also like to reiterate what Councilman Windsor said. Thank you so much for listening to our concerns and for voting no on that bill. Even though you were in the minority, we really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. On Senate Bill 61, I don't know, you may be hearing more than I am on the outdoor advertising. I know it's held up right now on the Senate second reading calendar, and which means it hasn't even, I don't think it's even gone to one of their, or it did go to the committee, and 2 people voted against it. I do remember that. And now the Senate's just trying to they're just taking their time to vote on it, I guess. But is that what you're hearing at your level?
So I think you might be talking about SB 144, the Billboard Restrictions Amendment. That bill passed out of the Senate committee. 5 voted for it and 2 against. Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh, yep, you're right. That is the one. There's another outdoor advertising one too, isn't there?
Yes, there's two very bad bills, and that's one of them. And the ULCT is not negotiating on SB 144 at all. They absolutely oppose that bill. And
and I don't see that getting any legs. I think you probably ought to be a little more concerned about whether Senate Bill 61. But I mean, that hasn't even come out of the Senate over to the House floor yet. And again, it may be part of their strategy to wait and bring it over with a flurry of bills at the last minute when they're horse trading, right?
Right. Yeah, they kind of.
Mayor, just to take a step back, this is Councilman Windsor again, Representative Miles.
Right.
You asked about the ULCT. They did vote to go to neutral on House Bill 98 if it substitute was to come out.
Okay.
I'm here to tell you, everyone on the LPC from this city voted no.
Okay.
On that, and it only passed 71% to 29%. But everyone in the South Weber City LPC did not support that go to neutral. We're opposed to it.
I appreciate that, and I'll take a real hard look at it. I haven't decided exactly where I'm at on it, but I'm leaning towards a no vote on it. So.
Well, if you need any more incentive to lean.
All right. I'll know who to call. Thank you.
Yep.
And I want the public to know that that Representative Miles set up a meeting with Councilman Windsor, Councilwoman Alberts, and I, and also with Representative Ward on HB 82 the other night, and spoke to him for quite a while, and so Kelly Miles, we appreciate you reaching out to us, that your involvement with the cities is not going unnoticed. And again, your vote on that bill as well. But we really appreciate the time that you spent looking at our perspective and understanding the perspective of cities. That really means a great deal to us. So,
Thank you for that, Mayor.
all right. Well, we don't want to take your whole evening. Is there any more comments or questions?
I have
Councilwoman Alberts.
It's very
Okay.
quick. You were talking about those last minute bills that come up. Just for
Yeah.
fun, it seems like. SB 144 is about short-term rentals. So just wanted to keep your eye on there. Obviously, we were able to discuss at length short-term rentals in our city and the problem that has been for us. But I just had one final question. What do we?
That's 221, I think. The
Oh,
short-term
221.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which one?
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
sorry. SB 221.
Okay.
Thank you. But I did
I'll
have
note that one.
one final question for you. If we are seeing things, i.e. short-term rentals, where we need help from the state and we need help drafting a bill, how do we go about that process to work with you in doing so? Or how do we do that?
Right. So I'd be glad to take a look at that with you. And I mean, we have paid, obviously, drafting attorneys on staff. We have some of the greatest legal minds as far as when it comes to drafting bills and that. So if it was something that you would like some help with, I'd be glad to sit down with you. Unless I was diametrically opposed to it and just, couldn't support it in the least, then I would hand it off to someone else and say, hey, will you approach Senator Milner about it or whatever? But I doubt that's the case. If it's important to you, it's likely going to be important to me. So if you have some interest in that, then probably it would be better after the session than right now. And I know you know that, but yeah, sometime during the summer, I'd be glad to sit down with you. And then if you even just have some general ideas, I can pass it to our legislative council. They can research it. They can see what's been done in other cities, in other states. I mean, and during the while we're not in session, they can devote whatever amount of time we need to take a look at that and help put something together.
Okay, you will be hearing from me.
All right, I'm glad to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Us.
You will be hearing from us.
There you go. I just hope I'm not diametrically opposed. That's
I don't believe you will be.
Oh, good.
Representative Miles, we have one more. Councilwoman Petty would like to say something.
Okay, thank
I
you.
just wanted to tell you, thank you very much for joining us. I know you're very busy, and I got to be honest, I didn't think you'd make it.
Well, thank
I'm
you.
pleasantly surprised because I know
I
that you are
I
very
was
busy.
worried, and you've probably seen, and I hate to even bring it up, but I was kind of roped into sponsoring the Dixie name change bill. I chair higher education, and you've probably seen now, and we're not going to debate that. But I do about 2 interviews, and I get reporters. I've got 2 reporters now that I've got to call back because the Senate's kind of holding it up. So I've got a couple hours left before I get to call it a night, but I'm glad that you saved the time. I appreciate that you kept the time open so I could speak with you. And thanks for all you do. I hear nothing but good about our South Weber mayor and council. So thank you for your representation of the citizens. And I think I've told those of you that I've talked, I really respect what you do on your level. I don't know how you do it on such a close level. I've never wanted to sit on a city council, a mayor, or a planning council, or water board. It's just too close. And so when the state position came open, I thought, maybe I can handle that. So thank you for what you do. I really appreciate you. It doesn't go unnoticed from a state level either. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much
you.
to you, Representative.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Best of luck on the name for change for
All
Dixon.
right, thank you.
You have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Okay. That was awesome. I'm glad he was able to join us. All right. Let's go to Resolution 21-09, Planning Commissioner appointment. So the Planning Commission has 3 vacancies created by the terms expiring for Taylor Walton and the resignation of Rob Osborne and Tim Grubb. The city previously advertised for a vacant position, and Commissioner Chair Rob Osborne, the city planner Sherry Phippen, and I performed interviews prior to the resignations. Jeremy and his family have lived in South Weber City since October 2017 after living in Florida and Hurricane, Utah. He has 10 plus years of project management experience and currently directs the AAA Roadside Assistance Program. Jeremy expressed his interest in serving when he stated, "I would love the opportunity to serve my community even more by being appointed to the Planning Commission. I feel my robust experience in customer service, process improvements, and project management make me an ideal candidate for this position, and I feel I would bring a unique perspective to the city in planning short-term and long-term goals. I am now presenting Jeremy Davis to fill the seat vacated by Taylor Walton. With the update to city code language regarding PC term lengths, Jeremy's term will be for 3 years. Are there comments or questions by the council? And do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-09?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve Resolution 21-09, Planning Commissioner appointment of Jeremy Davis.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further comment? And we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 And the motion carries. Welcome to the Planning Commission, Jeremy. We're excited to have you.
So Mayor, can I just
Yes.
maybe make that comment? Can we have the camera on these individuals? So
Oh,
the rest of
yeah.
the people can see who they are? Jeremy, do you want
I
to
know.
stand just a moment?
Now the whole city will know who you are.
It's a hard thing to turn the camera, so.
There you go.
Just go to the podium.
Yeah, just go.
Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe pull your mask off for a second there. Now we can see your face. Awesome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jeremy. I'm glad to have you. All right. All right, now Resolution 21-10, Planning Commissioner appointment to Julie Losi. Julie and her family have lived in South Weber over 14 years after moving from Colorado. She has worked 8 years as a realtor, in addition to other positions in human resources, sales, marketing, and many hours volunteering at both South Weber Elementary and Highmark Charter School. Julie expressed her interest in serving when she stated, "I love South Weber and all that this city offers to its citizens, and I would like to have a greater role in making sure that we stay a city that we can all be proud of, while acknowledging the need for growth, including both residential and commercial opportunities. I recommend that Julie Losi fill the seat vacated by Tim Grubb. Her term length would be until January 31st, 2024, the remaining 3 years left on that current term. Are there comments or questions on this resolution?
Mayor, can I just ask that she comes to the podium? Can we ask her a question? Is that okay, or is?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Julie, can you?
I meant to do it for Jeremy too, so I don't know if we can do that. But
Say the camera is not going to make that corner and come around.
I was gonna, yeah, that kind of helps.
You can come up here if you'd like. Then you can talk to both of us.
Okay, it's the same question for both of you. I just was wondering what you guys hope to bring to the Planning Commission and what you would like to achieve in your 3 years.
You get to go first.
Well, like the mayor said, I think I bring a really unique perspective to the table based on my overall work experience. But above that, I have a large passion for where I live and the community itself. So I hope to bring not only just unique, I'm like nervous. I don't know why I'm so nervous. A unique perspective, but also to really get to know the community better, right? I'm probably, I don't know if I've been here the least amount of time, but not a very long time. And my wife and I make comments to each other all the time that as soon as we got here, it's like it really felt like home. And I think that's really cool. And I want everyone to be able to feel that way and to continue to feel that way. So I hope whatever I'm able to bring to the Planning Commission supports that overall vision and how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for letting me put
Jeremy.
you on the spot
Thanks
like
for
that
being
too.
willing to serve.
And I'll say, if anybody wants to see the letter that I sent to the mayor in full, I am more than willing to send it out to you because I really do think it explains what my qualifications are, what I think, what perspective that I bring. Obviously there's a lot of due diligence, contract law, negotiations, asking the tough questions sometimes and being willing to do that up front before getting our city into a situation a big stink pile of poo. So let's avoid that. Also, I bring just a passion. I've loved the city. I really do feel like it is a hidden gem. I tell it every time people start looking in Davis County, I'm like, so where do you want to live? And I was like, let me introduce this beautiful little haven that we have here. And it's amazing. Everybody is just like, wow, South Weaver's got something that is unique. We're not Layton. We're not Kaysville. We're not any of the other cities in Davis County. And I want to protect that. I want to keep that. And having gotten more involved and seen all of the efforts and the hours and just the time that goes into making the city what it is, I want to be a part of that. So that's what I'm hoping to bring. So energy, enthusiasm, a little bit of sarcasm, no filters. I'm going to apologize right now. It usually engages a little too late. So just roll with it.
Thank you,
Julie.
Julie. Thank you, Julie. All right. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-10?
I'll make the motion that we approve 21-10 Planning Commissioner appointment, Judy Losi.
Do I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, I'll let Michelle pick. Okay. All right. Any further comment? And let's have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Windsor.
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Welcome to Planning Commission, Julie. We're excited to have you. All right. Next resolution, 21-11, Planning Commissioner appointment to Taylor Walton. Taylor Walton has been a valuable member of Planning Commission for the past 5 years. He has been instrumental in helping with the Code Committee update. He has years of planning experience and brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. The City Council previously expressed a concern for the length of term Taylor would serve if appointed to a second 5-year term after already having served 5 years on the commission. I am recommending Taylor serve the remaining 2 years of the term vacated by Rob Osborne. Are there comments or questions on this?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment. When this first came up, I made some comments critical about Taylor that were unfair, not having had spoken to him privately beforehand. And so I asked for his forgiveness, and I apologize for doing that, Taylor. But with that, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 2111, Planning Commission appointment for Taylor Walton.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further comment?
Can I ask him the same question?
Taylor.
I just want to be fair and equal.
Completely fine.
We have a motion and
Oh.
a second, but he can make a comment, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So can I get the question again, just to make sure I'm getting it?
What do you hope to bring to the Planning Commission and what you hope to achieve in the remainder of the term?
Certainly. So I've had an opportunity to be part of a lot of public meetings, both here in the city and my other responsibilities. One thing that has always rung true to me is a principle that I learned when I was in college, and that is nothing about us without us is for us. And that's kind of a mouthful, but in essence, without bringing in a bunch of different voices, understanding the community that we live in, nothing that is decided from anybody is going to be for the city unless we get the public input first. And I'll champion public involvement, making sure that voices are heard and that we execute the vision within the general plan to the best of our abilities. So that's what I believe I bring to the Planning Commission, what I hope to be able to execute over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Okay, we have
Be-
a motion. And
Before we do a roll call vote, can I just make a comment?
Yep.
I understand that this looks like a little bit like a flip-flop, and it's been a little bit of a whirlwind here. And Taylor, it's kind of fallen on your shoulders the most. But I just want to put up for the record, my concerns with Taylor initially was the length of term. And not being able to open up. So where we are able to meet those new applicants and a shorter term, I am happy to have you on board.
All right, thank you. Let's then have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 The motion carries. We have a full planning commission. Woohoo! All right. Thank you to all of you who have served and are continuing to serve and will serve in the future. Appreciate all of you. All right. Next item is a public hearing, Budget 2020-2021, Amendment Number 5. The current city budget for 2020-2021 was adopted on June 16, 2020. Since the adoption of the budget, the city has received CARES Act funds. The City Council has previously approved several expenditures of the CARES Act funds. The first section of amendments relates to these expenditures. The first is an adjustment to reduce fire salaries and benefits previously budgeted to be covered by CARES by $172,000. The second amendment is for additional touchless drinking fountains and upgrade of the city sign amounting to $81,000. The third amendment is an adjustment for new radios in the fire department totaling $9,000. The fourth amendment is to reduce the utility assistance program by $29,000. The second section of amendments are not related to CARES. These include an additional $10,000 for unexpected vehicle repairs in the fire department and $820,000 for Canyon Meadows Park West improvements. Is there anything I need to add to that, Dave?
No, that's a good summary. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay. Are there comments or questions before we open for public hearing?
I was just wondering, can you elaborate on the equipment with the fire department? What happened there?
Yeah, so we always have some money ready for equipment maintenance, things like that. But there were some unexpected expenses. Two specific. One was a fuel pump that went out on the squad, and the other was a major wiring issue on the ambulance.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? All right, then I will entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Aye.
Okay, that's a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we are now in the public hearing. And you're welcome to comment at the podium.
Corinne Johnson, 8020 South 2500 East. With the flurry of discussion that is taking place across the city of South Weber regarding the sign, the city sign, I just wanted to make a recommendation that until the issues with the sign in terms of placement, in terms of safety, in terms of all the concerns of the citizens are addressed by the Public Safety Commission, and the decision is finalized by the council on how to address it before any of the money is spent on that sign. And that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Corinne. Hey, anyone else have comments?
Trying to light that microphone some more.
You did that so ably. All right. Okay. Hearing no more public comment, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is now closed. And we will move to the Resolution 21-12, Budget 2020-21, Amendment Number 5. Are there any comments or questions by council?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss the comment that was just made about the sign. If we are to approve tonight's resolution, is there time to address the sign and its safety issues and so forth, and still be able to spend the $80,000 by the June 30th deadline?
Yeah, so we've been working with YESCO to this point, and the deadline for a decision in order to have everything installed would be middle of March. So we would have to make a decision on what we're going to do by the middle of March in order to have the installation timeline meet that June deadline for having everything done and paid for.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, even though, I mean, not all of this 81,000 is, I mean, some of that's for the touchless fixtures as well. I think it's like 60 of that 80, correct?
Yeah, it's not the full.
It's not the full 81, but if we approve it now, and even if we don't spend it, I mean, it'll still go, I mean, it'll have to go back, but if we don't amend the budget, we won't have it amended in time if we come up to that agreement by the 15th. So this is just to amend the budget, just like any other budget items we do. If we don't spend the money, we don't spend the money.
It's just trying to appropriate it.
Yeah, it'll be appropriated so it can be spent. The Public Safety Committee will come back with a recommendation as soon as possible. That is number one priority.
Thanks for that explanation. I appreciate it.
And our next meeting would be on the 8th of March. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it needs to come for the.
Yeah,
that
the
meeting, right?
intention is to have a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee for the March 9th meeting.
Okay,
I
thank
believe
you.
it's the 9th.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, then do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-12, Budget 2020-2021, Amendment Number 5?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 21-12, Budget 2021-2021, Amendment Number 5. Did I say it right?
Seconded.
Should be, sorry.
Very good.
It should be 2020 to 2021,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. I was wondering why.
Yeah.
I still messed it up. Dang it.
Oh, that's just because it was typed wrong, I believe, so. All right, we have a motion and
I'll
a
second.
thank you. Councilman Soderquist seconds it. Any further comment? We'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilman Halverson.
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Item number 15, General Plan Development Plan and Agreement Crosshatch Clarification. And I am going to turn the time over to Sherry Pippin to lead this discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify a couple things. And I apologize if this wasn't made clear by the staff report. The goal of this discussion isn't to override or undo any of the discussions and decisions that the city council went into during the general plan update process. This is kind of the next step. Because, you know, when the city council decided that, okay, these are the areas where we're going to consider something besides the underlying zoning through a development agreement, the next logical step, because nothing was codified or put in the that point, the next step is to have those discussions. And so we felt like now is an appropriate time where we have something coming forward to us in the process on one of those parcels. We felt now was the best time for the city council really to narrow in on those discussions and make those determinations so that staff and the developer can have the framework to go forward on when they prepare the project and when we review it. So the primary questions that at this point it would be appropriate for the council to consider are will this specific area, because we are talking about the Paul property, will this specific area be allowed to have a residential component? And if so, at what density? And then if those uses are going to be allowed, something that frequently happens when there is a blend of commercial and residential uses is that there are architectural design standards put into place so that it gives a more cohesive blend and an overall higher quality of development for the city and for the developer. I would say that those two are the primary questions. You know, frequently what happens in projects like this is that, and I believe that Jamie and I have both spoken to this a little bit, is those things can be done by ordinance or they can be done by development agreement. And I know the council said that they would look at development plan and development agreement to implement some of these things. And so I guess it would just be further clarification or restatement on if that's the road the council wants us to go down with allowing these projects to go forward. So.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilman.
No, I mean, if I can add to that a little bit, and I'm sure most of you know my opinion, but I think, I would love to say we could put an ordinance together to match the crosshatch, but the point of the crosshatch was, one, each of these pieces of property are a little different, and I don't think we can put together an ordinance that covers all four of these pieces of property, two being two major pieces of property. The point of that was to allow some creative process or development proposals to come to us. Otherwise, if we're not in agreement with that, then we should just keep a development agreement and leave it as the future zoning map lays, whether that be commercial, whether that be what other kind of housing, whatever that is. And I think when I requested, and with Angie telling me we need to request this, but we needed some guidelines. I mean, because as we sat down to talk about a development agreement, it does get into what are we going to allow, and you can't sit down with a developer or a property owner if you don't have anything. But I think it has to be specific. If we're going to allow something outside the future zoning, land use map, then we need to set up guidelines of something to give them to work with, or we're just going to spin our wheels. And so Sherry hit it right on the head. Those two are the key. And I think that's what we have to allow them to go back with and then bring proposals to us. Because, and I've said this to Wayne earlier, my opinion is completely different than Wayne's on the concept that's being presented. And so somehow we got to get rid of my personal opinions and go to hard facts and hard numbers and do that, because my opinion and my architectural may not be what someone else likes. So
That's why they put us on opposite sides.
that is why we sit on there is a reason. And but so that is, Sherry, I really appreciate that comment, is we need somehow, but when we go back to meet as a committee to talk about this development agreement, we either need to give a property owner and a developer, here's what you can do, or not. I mean, it's just some basic numbers, and those are the first two questions that we need each council member to answer. And it's hard to get to specifics, but we pretty much have to get to specifics, or we say go with the underlying future land use, which on this particular piece of property is commercial highway. So I would love to, and I think Angie would, I think the mayor would, everybody would like to have those. I think the property owner would like to know those. So I think that is what our job is. So I'll let you guys take it from there.
Well, do you want to start out with?
Sure.
Okay.
I have no problem. I don't know. I wish we had the property that your plan up in front of us, but I pretty much know it by heart, but I don't know if you can put it up there.
Do we have a copy of that we can bring up?
Mm-hmm.
Dave's on it.
I believe we do. We'll
Dave's working on
we'll try
it.
to get it to Lisa so she can put it up. Did you send that electronically? It might be easiest if you just send the most latest version so we don't put something that's old. T. Larson, yep. We're all waiting with bated breath.
So while you're pulling that up, I can kind of start. How many acres is the parcel? I forget. So it's close to 11 acres.
Would one of you mind going up to the microphone? Thanks.
So the last thing I want is to force someone to develop this whole piece of property and have you put a whole bunch of strip malls type, lease spaces or whatever and have them sit empty. That's a blight on the city. I don't say, yeah, you got to go build all this and hope they come. I get that. I like the fact that you have people that you've talked to that are willing to commit to some commercial property there. My personal preference is, and again, it gets into personal preferences again, but I would allow some residential there. But I do think the frontage should all be commercial. I like the fact that you have, and I'm not going to tell you what kind of residential, because again, I like the total different kind of residential than I think a couple other members of the council. And so I'm going to leave that to you to come back with different proposals. But I like what is it? The ice cream, the scoop,
right?
All of that kind of look and that kind of feel. It's a neat look. It's a neat feel.
Well,
But I wouldn't expect you to build the whole, all of the commercial all at once. That's why I wanted to see the map, but the northern half of what you currently have designed as apartments, I think should still be commercial. It's a commercial piece of property. That's right as you come into the city. That's the look. That's the feel. That to me should still be commercial. Do you have to build it all right now? I think we can come to an agreement that doesn't have to be built right now, but it still has to be reserved for commercial space. And then what you do behind that is another idea. If you don't like that concept, whoever owns the property can divide it up in sections like the rest of the commercial developers have in the city and divide it up in sections as they come, just like the people across the street do. And so I would not be in favor of a higher density though than our highest density in the city. And currently that highest density is R7. And I think we've gone to great lengths as a council and as a community and every citizen around to discuss that. Some in favor, some not in favor, but that's been the major consensus, I believe.
Sure.
And so I would not be in favor of a higher density than R7 on there in my mind. So if you can go to the overall plan.
Next page.
So if you look right there where it's the western section of apartments, I would, not the western, the northern half of those.
Northeast, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you go to the next page, it might be a little easier
Yeah, one
to
more
see.
page looks a little better.
There you go. Right there by where Anytime Fitness is. I feel that, I mean, the percentage, the ratio of commercial you have to residential in here is way out of balance because it's a commercial piece of property.
Sure.
I mean, yes, currently it's zoned agricultural. You can have one house per acre or whatever that comes out to. But right now we're at like 16 units per acre or more.
Sure.
Even counting it as shared with the commercial. So that would be where I was going. I don't know if the council wants to elaborate on that. I struggle to dictate what type that needs to be because I've had 10 different people tell me 10 different things. Townhomes, and I know people have spoke about types of people that certain areas bring into our community. Well, I have not heard one complaint ever at our apartments over here, and I haven't heard complaints at the townhomes either, and they're great people.
Sure.
And it has nothing to do with socioeconomic status other than that, yes, some of these things, some people can afford to get into townhomes versus apartments, but they're all great people. So.
I'd love to speak to that if I can.
You may.
So I think you brought up a lot of really good points. Councilmember Halverson, I agree. It's difficult to, I guess it's the beauty of a council, right? You have differing opinions, and that's why you're here, to make a decision based on more than one person's opinion. So, but specifically as far as commercial goes, I mean, we really did take this back a few times over the last 4 months, and we've been really focusing on commercial first. We know that that's the underlying, in the master plan for the zoning, and so we have tried to play that fine balance between how much commercial can we build, even in a 10-year perspective, which we think is reasonable for a city and still doable for someone to actually build this. So that's where we've come up with this 18,000 square feet that we show here. I think, that our group would be more than happy to try to continue the commercial along the frontage, especially if we're able to phase some of that as good commercial tenants come. And I don't mind that idea one bit. I think we can do that. And again, we've really tried to make this a good project with smart use of infill in the back. This property is uniquely shaped and very different than across the street. So the depth here is very different. And it's much harder to fill commercial space that's this deep and with an awkward shape on the west side. So
can I just stop you there though? So the part that I'm talking about changing the commercials, your best piece of commercial property. It's your most square. Proximity. It's your most square. It's set up perfectly for a drive-through. Just ask the developer next to you.
Right. Sure.
And so I guess I'm going to back up a little bit. I don't know that I want you to convince me otherwise. I think that the whole thing sitting here is we've gone through this with you.
Sure.
If this is the proposal that's coming to us, it's not happening.
Right.
I mean, in my book, and I think that's a lot. So I think the council deserves, or we owe it to you to give you the numbers we will accept.
Sure.
And move on. But
Right.
This ratio isn't gonna, it's not gonna go anywhere with me.
Sure. And I have heard that it's very similar feedback, and so we are aware of that, and we are willing.
And you've heard it from almost every council member, yet it doesn't.
Right. Well, we haven't had time. Once we got the feedback, there was no time to actually change, right? So this is not, this drawing still needs to change based on conversations I've had and what I've learned. What I can tell you now is we are open to changing this plan that will work.
Okay.
So we can commit to that. We can commit to additional commercial with the obvious need to phase into it so we don't have vacant commercial buildings. I think the city the city council agrees with us that, we don't want vacant buildings. So we can do that. We can reduce density down. It just needs to make sense. And that's what I'm here to hope that we can get to, is if it is a townhome product, we still need enough density to make the overall project work. And that's really why I'm here. I think there's a lot of ways to reduce that way down, the density that we have, and still make it work. But we need at least a base amount of density. It matters a lot to making this work and to really creating a project that can get approved by the Paul family and the builder and everybody on our end. So I guess I just want to reiterate, we are happy to make changes. We are happy to listen and do what the council has spoken about and what the community feels, which is, less density. But it does need to work at the end of the day. And so I think we can drastically reduce the density, but we need at least have that flexibility that we can still create the best neighborhood we can with the commercial and have enough units that we can actually build it. That's kind of the end of the day. We need to have enough that we can actually develop the property and continue a sell for the Paul family.
All right. Thank you, Sky. And thank you, Councilman Havers. Councilwoman
Oh, are we going down the line?
Rapid
Aw.
fire.
Um, so there goes my pen. Okay. Nope, I still dropped it. All right. Anyway, so I was able to meet with you guys. You guys heard you listened very patiently while I passionately gave you a diatribe. Hopefully you've been able to listen to our community today and you can see why I said the things that I said. We discussed, just so everyone here on the council is aware, moving where the Anytime Fitness is in that parking lot, moving these commercial properties to that area. And I have the same concern that Blair brought up is empty commercial. That's something that I really am concerned about. That's definitely a blight on the community. And commercial is changing, retail is changing, and even more so after this pandemic. So for my part, just so you all know, I was in favor of lowering the commercial square footage down slightly to those that we have LOIs for, and maybe a couple additional buildings in addition to that, with everything residential going to R7. They inform me, financially, the aspects of how it has to make it pencil or make sense, as we like to hear from you. That was something that was a little more doable. I'm fine in doing phasing. So let me ask you, so we both understand phasing the same way. If you guys were able to do phasing, it would still be this development plan. If we were to phase, say, three commercial buildings and half the residential, is that something that's doable, and then continue to phase on down through? Or how do you define phasing, I guess, is what I'd like to hear.
Sure. Yeah, we can do a hybrid, something like that, and get, a little closer with a development agreement so that we can actually take it back, look at what we can afford to build and when. But absolutely, if we need to do 50% of the housing with phase 1 of commercial and the other 50 with a second phase of commercial, we can make something like that work.
Okay. I'm okay with, yes.
I don't mean to cut you off, but just at a high level question on phasing, the size of this project, how many phases would you see?
2 to 3. So,
thank you.
I echo again a lot what Blair said, and we discussed this as well. Our high density is 7 units per acre. I do like what Blair brought up. I mean, I know I told you guys specifically what type of housing, and he brought up some valid concerns to me about that. So I guess if you need a number, it's 7. The type of housing that comes with that, that was something that you'll have to bring to us. But to give you an idea of where we're at, I am also at 7. So in short, I guess I am okay with less commercial if it means less residential. I am okay with phasing as long as it's 50-50 commercial and residential, and that residential needs to be at 7 units per acre.
Thank you. Councilwoman Alberts, Councilman Soderquist.
So I appreciate you coming and sharing all the information you have. I also like the fact that you've got specific commercial that you already tried to talk to. One of my biggest concerns when we were looking at this is, if it's all commercial highway, sure, we could fill it all commercial highway, but it may be non-value added to our city, so to speak. We can fill the land with something that's commercial that doesn't do anything.
Sure.
And so that was my biggest concern is, and as I mentioned this before when you guys were here, was return on investment. What makes the most sense to all parties involved? I don't feel like we should have a hard stance that we want it to be 100% commercial, because then we may get what we want, which is not what we want. So I agree with, the comment, the commercial along the frontage, the R7 I can completely support. Anything beyond that, I would need to understand what the return on investment is to the city. Obviously if we turn the whole thing into a mega high-rise apartment complex, whatever, there'd be some great value to someone, but not necessarily to what South Weaver is.
Right.
And so those are my kind of ideas and thoughts. I would like it to be something that is realistic and manageable. I'm fine with the phasing concepts that have been proposed. But I'd also just like to understand, as we go through, what those pros and cons are. I don't want anything empty, but I want to have value added commercial at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, and that makes great sense. And to speak to that, as far as density goes, I mean, it's we've looked very hard at reducing the density, and we can do that. Going down from say 17 to 7 makes a huge difference in the likelihood of this ever happening, just to be candid. But we can do form that the city wants, and I think that's likely a little more important than a number, in my opinion. So that if you follow a type of neighborhood that you want, that looks nice, that looks right, that's done well, and is a community that you would live in, I think we can do that and still hit a very average density of townhomes. You could speak to other projects or engineers, but there's many ways that we can be creative, and I do think a development agreement allows for that flexibility, where we can give the city more input in what these are going to look like and how this will be designed. But we do ask in return that we have some flexibility to make a townhome project that makes sense to us, and just the highest quality unit that we can get, right, for a new homeowner or someone that wants to rent a unit. So I do ask for that flexibility, that we can at least look at density that will work for us, but still give you the form and the quality that you want.
Sky, can I just offer what we discussed in our meeting is it's not just about form and how it looks. We discussed this specific area and traffic wise. The more density that goes in there, the more cars that are on that road, the more that it impacts it. It's one of the only exits one of 2 exits we have out of our city, and it works for us. But if we have, an extra 160, 180 units here, each of those units with 2 cars, you add that to the traffic coming in with Highmark, which we discussed, you add that into the traffic that's going to be across the street with those developments coming in, that's going to be a high impact to our citizens and to our city. So it's not just about how it looks. It is also about how it will impact our community.
Sure, and I do remember speaking about that with you, and that's a very valid point. So, and when I say reduce density, I mean theoretically, if we were to take half the density down, you would see a drastic change. And I think we could take a real look with a traffic engineer to show exactly what those peak hour left-hand turns would do with 70 versus 100 townhomes, and let you look at the real data of what would that or wouldn't that do. That's probably the best way to answer that. I'm happy to do that.
So just one follow-up, and this is probably more to the people in the city or council that understand better than me. If it is, for example, R7, is that based off of the entire acreage or only the residential portion of the acreage?
That's the debate.
Okay.
But from my perspective, it was the entire parcel, similar to what we talked about on other proposals, which I think makes that is the flexibility that I'm willing to do. But and Wayne's chomping a bit now.
Will be.
But I do remember that was the idea that Councilman Windsor put in my head a few months ago.
You're drinking the wrong Kool-Aid there, Blair.
So anyway, just for whatever it's worth, if there's no definition clear on it, then I think the whole parcel would be considered. But
It'd be about 80
Yeah,
to 82 townhomes.
okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Sky.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Petty.
Okay, well, thank you, Sky, for coming and presenting this to everybody again. So I had the opportunity to meet with Sky and we talked about this proposal. For everyone's reference, I feel like the density should be based on the entire parcel. And my husband completely disagrees with me on this, just so you know. We can't talk about this because he thinks I'm totally wrong. And maybe other people do too. But I have studied this property over and over, and there's no way we could make this completely commercial. It would not, like Quinn said, there's not a benefit. We might get what we want, and that's not what we want at all. Driven through several places. I take our kids to guitar lessons in Clearfield, and it is like 2 places in the strip mall that are completely dilapidated and everything else is vacant. And that is not what we want for South Weber. So with that in mind, we don't want to build, 12 or 20 commercial, spots and then have them all be vacant. So I think the density should be for the entire unit. Based upon the examples you showed us in the rest of this packet, I actually, don't kill me everyone, the apartments looked really nice. They were really appealing. And I thought they looked nicer than the townhomes. It would be a more cohesive project. But I understand that increases the density significantly. I feel like that front apartment building that we were discussing, the northeast, could be removed, move the commercial over into that area, and dividing it up, doing the phasing, I think would be a good idea to make sure we don't end up with so many empty commercial spots.
Sure.
So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Petty.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's everyone.
I think I'll sit down now.
Oh, wait. Oh,
You didn't hear me say a number?
Angie, say a number.
You were very vague.
I am so torn because I know the lengths that have been to get us to this point, honestly. And I said, I was quite candid and I said, what if they just left it R7 and put 10 homes there? And I drove by and I'm like, it would be so weird to just have 10 homes there. And I'm about person that's all about land and acreage and maintaining large lots, but it would not make sense for our city, in my opinion, to just have that maintained as ag. So did I say a number? No, I didn't say a number. I would like it to stay to 7, but I am open to see another number based on if we need some more density to maintain these commercial that have already shown interest. If that's the difference between having these commercial filled versus not, I would entertain a higher number of density. I don't know what that number is.
And if I could make a quick comment to that.
I know.
Yeah, Sky, I was going to ask you, what would be the density if you wanted to do your 3 LOIs? And that's just those 3. What would be your density?
Well,
I know that's
I
not
wish I had
easily black and white,
a spreadsheet
but
with a dial that I could just, what do you want? And this is, but I don't have that. But I can tell you that, and the Scoop and the other drink user, we're looking at someone else that's working closely with the Scoop. Those offers, we got them by practically giving away that land. So we gave it away as a letter of intent at this point, hoping that, planning on that we were going to get something close to this plan approved. And that's, and in the development business, we call that a loss leader, right? You do that to get good tenants that we know the city wants, excited about, Aggie ice cream, whatever ice cream it is. That kind of cool concepts, typically, they're not always able to pay big numbers for commercial space, especially at first, especially if they're going to a place that has, lower traffic counts than where they've ever been before. So we've already kind of done that, and we're willing to do that, but it has to come from somewhere. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'd just like to thank you for comments on. However, I'm going to put this to the side and speak more generally with regards to this property. Going last, a lot of things I'm going to say have already been said in one shape or another. But the global question here is density. Our general plan did not consider any density in residential units on this piece of property. To consider any density putting in here, whatever that means, where do we subtract the density elsewhere in this city? Is that fair to the other property owners to have to reduce what's been projected for their areas to accommodate this right here? That's a question. It's a rhetorical type question. But from my perspective, the density proposed or shown in this is grossly excessive. Yes, it might not pencil out. I'm not here to suggest if it's overpriced, underpriced. I'm not getting into that. I'm just here to look at the safety and the density aspect of what this community wants and the fabric of this community. I get that we need to have some residential combination to drive the commercial. I'm coming around to that corner. But to have 180 or an R18, we worked very hard to get rid of our R30 zone, and we got down to R7. If we say R7 for the whole 10 or 11 acres, you're talking 60-some units, and it's not much different. If it were me providing a suggestion, to me, my first suggestion was, well, it's zoned for agriculture. You could put 9 units on there, put 9 units on there. And if you want to squeeze them into smaller units and make the rest commercial, fine. But that's kind of not going to pencil out for you. At the worst case scenario, I'd say make 50% of the land commercial and 50% R7. I'm not saying R7 for 100%, put it on 50% of the land. No, I'm saying 50% of the land, R7, that's 35 units at most. At that point, we're still compromising with regards to the density, the traffic flow, and so forth. But does that give some of this commercial to come in? Are these commercial services what's going to benefit this community? Again, is it eye candy, or is it something that's really going to benefit the community, that what they want? And that's what, how do you know what they want unless you're actually here? It needs to be services that's going to benefit this community first, and not be a transient magnet to bring others in. I'd rather be more of a service here. And if it accommodates others from other communities, great. Don't have a problem with that. But I don't have a problem with necessarily the people for apartments. That's not the issue. The look of the apartments, that's not the issue. For me, it's the density within the footprint and how that density has to migrate out into our city streets. And this is at the east end. You already have a high density traffic area right next door with the school at 8 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Right now, they're lighting right up on property right here. That's already going on. I don't see that changing. How is this or any kind of proposal going to change that, or going to be impacted by that? And what kind of traffic issues is that going to create? So density is a huge problem for me, any kind of density. So if I had to make numbers, Blair, yeah, R7 would be the highest, and it would be for 50% of the land.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Windsor. So I'm not a voting member of this council, so you can take or leave whatever I say, and it's okay. But I feel, as most members of this council do, I would like to see this turn into something nice, and I would like to understand what kind of compromises that you can make and still have this be a nice development. I like the idea of businesses across the front, and I'm definitely open to residential on this property. The numbers, I would like to see how low you could get it down, and I would like you to work really hard at doing that. But I'd also like it to be a very nice visual. The the gateway to our community, like you said. And
Right,
so I would like to see a nice gateway to this community because we have the greatest community in Utah. So that's just my feeling, and that's all of our feelings, I guess. So
Sure.
anyway, I'd like to see what proposal you can come back with and see how we can make something work for both of us. So
Okay, I think that's a very fair question, Mayor, and we'd be happy to do that. Get to work on reducing that down as much as possible and still something to be proud of at the end of the day. I think that's really what we all want.
thank you. Dave, did you have a comment?
This conversation is extremely legislative, right? It's very much policy driven council conversation and decision making on where we go. But I would like to just provide a perspective on all of the various developers that we work with as city staff over time. And one of the aspects of any major project is the ability for a developer to not only put pen to paper, but actually deliver on the promises that are written on that paper. And I would just like to say that there are some developers that get it and there are some that don't necessarily get it. And you can see that right away. And I express gratitude and appreciation for the willingness of Sky and his team in working with us as a city. And what we've created here, where there's an opportunity for dialogue back and forth and an opportunity for kind of working together, this is a great group to work with. And so I appreciate seeing the council work with them as well. So ultimately, the decision is all up to you as far as where we go. But from a staff perspective, it's very helpful for us to get this direction from the council in working with the developer and a good developer at that.
Can I make one other comment?
Yes, you may.
No, and I appreciate your time to take it and go through this with us, because the crosshatch requires or recommends the development agreement. But and part of this process is coming up with what to put in that development agreement. But I think we've all been down the road of having a development agreement without a conceptual plan or anything. And so we can come up with the language in that development agreement, but and I think we'll all agree to abide by that. But I don't think any of us are going to approve or have a legislative act to sign that development agreement until we have a concept drawing to go with it. And if that changes, there has to be an amendment go through the process to that, and it will be attached to it. So, I mean, we've had a couple development agreements before most of our time that we're living with still today that have no concept plans and don't tie anything to it. Otherwise, the property should revert back to what it was. And so I just want to make sure everybody's in agreement that that's how we approach this as a committee as well.
Yeah, that's a really important point, that when we say in the general plan, development agreement and development plan,
yes,
that's two barrels to the same shotgun, right? We're not doing that separate and distinct.
And I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that too. So
yeah, no, I'm sure Nate
because
Reed
it
will be
costs you
happy
money.
to know we'll have many more revisions down the road to bill for. So yes, we are aware. So we're happy to do it. There is a cost to it, but we're happy to do that. And we're buying property in Idaho in another project that has it's a 26-year-old development agreement with no concept plan, and it's zoned for a mobile home park, and nobody wants that, right? Especially the city. So we're having to unwind that. Because that was one of the reasons why. So I understand that.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, can I just ask one more question?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to really quickly. Do you feel that the 3 tenants you have listed here, Dutch Brothers Coffee, The Scoop, what was it, Qdoba? Do you feel like they would still be interested if it's zoned at R7 for 100% of the property?
I think there would need to be concessions made, and I'm not sure where we would get all of those if the density is too low. So I think we can keep some, but probably not all.
Is that because of the commercial, or is that because of the development costs? Because I can't imagine 80 homes are going to make a difference in whether that business survives.
Very good point, council member. It's the development cost, right? So we look at it with a bucket. leftover funds, right? And we're willing to give that to whatever we need to that.
It
aligns.
wouldn't necessarily depend on the success of the commercial. It would depend on the financing of it, is
Right.
what you're saying.
Yep, and I'm very open book, is hopefully you'll answer any questions on how that works and how we go about financing, so.
I just want to just thank you guys. I've been on council for 3 years, and truly, you are the most honest developers we've ever had approach us and be very open, and we can have some good dialogue. And I feel like that goes a long way in helping us make good decisions for our city. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes, and I thank you, Sky and Brad. Thanks for all your time,
course,
all your
thank you.
efforts. And the Powell family, we have a lot of respect for and appreciate, and so we'd like to see things work out well for them too. So
Well, thank you. And we're excited to come back with a fresher concept. Now we have some direction on discussion at this point as all, but we have a good idea of what we can do, I think, density wise, and that helps a lot. So
all
Thanks,
right.
Kay.
thank you.
May,
Thank
may
you.
I ask a couple questions?
Sure.
So Dave, I know that we discussed initially at large all the different commercial properties that have this hatch mark. And I know that that's not what we're going to go into tonight, but what is our process for discussing and taking this up? Look at and work on, or is this something where every case by case we need to do this? Like how do we streamline this?
Yeah, so in some ways, not in some ways, the general plan is what dictates this process for us.
Mhm.
And what we've created for ourselves through the general plan crosshatch is a situation where, as Blair really aptly described it, we have some unique parcels that have one similar element, and that is that they are zoned commercial, and we want that to be cohesive, and we want that to really flow well together traffic wise and all of those things, and design wise really be a nice cohesive project, but they're all unique, and they have a kind of a different need and a different vision. And so that's why that overarching umbrella of development plan and development agreement in tandem is what we put on there. What it means is that there's not a true underlying zone that just rules all, where typically the development process is directed by that underlying zone. And that's just the rule book that we all follow at that point. The developers know exactly what list of rules that they've got to follow. Staff knows what to apply. Planning Commission knows what to apply, all of that. But what we've created here is an opportunity for flexibility, an opportunity for discussion and dialogue. So when we get other proposals, of course, the projected land use map shows an underlying zone of commercial highway on all 4 of these properties that have the crosshatch. If a commercial highway project comes forward, then we've got the rule book. If that's all they wanted to do, then we've got the rule book. We would still do a development plan and development agreement, right? We want that. But that rule book has been established through legislative act, right? Zoning is a legislative decision. General plan is legislative decision. And so that rule book is there for us. If they want to have a conversation like this one that has some additional elements to it, then we're kind of back to this exact same place where the discussion is what is allowed and what is not, right? We've got to put pen to paper on that development plan and development agreement. And we've created an ability to have dialogue about what can go into that. Does that answer the question?
Well,
or
I guess
not really.
No, but
Well, TZ pointed it out. The short answer is the process is the council has to make a decision on what they all.
okay, so a developer comes, sees that this is the property, and the process is to come to the council first and talk about a development agreement and concept plan, as we discussed.
Yes.
My question is let's take this property, for example, and say that we decide to do something higher than an R7 zone or something. That will then go to the Planning Commission, correct?
Yes.
How are those things that the Planning Commission checks? weighted if we don't have this code? So for example, housing, do they go by the setbacks of the R7 zone? Do we make up new setbacks? Like what, I feel like we're still painting ourselves into a corner. We still have some more homework to do on this, do we not?
Yes, there's still quite a bit of homework, but it starts with the question of residential
So I guess
allowance or
that's my question is what do we do next? So we have the council has weighed in, but does planning commission need to take this or how do we get ahead of the game before we're always running behind?
Well, I would argue that we are ahead of the game. And I would argue that simply from the idea that the council has the ability to set the rules of the game, right? You haven't given that to anybody else.
Okay.
And so the idea of developing zoning, I've used the word legislative a couple of times. What I mean by that is there is a legislative decision that only the city council can make that establishes zoning code. That happens either through an actual zone or through development agreement.
So the
Those are
development
two
agreement would
tools.
include the setbacks, all that.
We would have to put we're essentially creating the zone that applies to this
Gotcha.
project specific through a development agreement. There's a major concern on staff level, and I'll state that right here and right now. I think you all know, all four of us really are uncomfortable generally with the concept of legislating and creating zone on the fly. We don't love that. But at the same time, I would say this, that although it's better to have a code that you apply directly, it's not the worst thing in the world to use this tool as we've got it. We just don't want to use a development agreement as the out. Every time somebody says, I don't really like code, I'd like to do something else. Can we do a development agreement? The answer is going to be no. But in our general plan, we've given ourselves on 4 properties the ability to have a conversation. That's all it is, the ability to have a conversation and be flexible, right? Blair said it a couple times. If ultimately we can't come to an agreement and we want to just simply say, you know what, that actually needs to be commercial highway or whatever on this or any other property, the council still holds that authority and that ability.
So I'm sorry, but I just wanted to understand this. If let's just take our lofts, for example, the development agreement didn't specify any of those things because we had a zone.
Yes.
Who is our check and balance to make sure that we have considered everything we need to consider because there is no zone in our development agreement? Who is that person that makes sure, hey, you guys have decided the lot lines, you guys have decided the setbacks?
Jamie really wants to say something right about now.
This feels a little like putting your head in the guillotine. I'd rather not use the lofts as an example of how to do things. There is language in that development agreement that makes it unclear to me what it is legally and what it intended to achieve legally. And I think that's why it was so difficult to interpret and to apply. And to David's point about why it's so difficult to do site-specific zoning through a development agreement, that's kind of the reason why, is it creates uncertainty on the part of the council, uncertainty on the part of the developer. What it does allow you to do is where you're not sure about how a parcel might be commercially viable or developed, then a developer can come forward and say, here's a way that we might achieve that. But then you as a council have a legislative decision to make that's policy based, and you can make policy choices, and it's different than the kind of approval or decision where you're looking at a zoning district and defined zoning and entitlements and trying to figure out whether the development put forward satisfies that requirement. So this is a little odd for it to come to the council first and then go back to the planning commission. But I think where you're making a purely legislative decision, that's not inappropriate to do it that way.
I guess I'm a little concerned if the lofts is a bad example and the lofts had a zone to go with it. Well, this does not have a zone to go with it. So
I should say that my concern with the lofts agreement is that It states it's legislative, but when you look at how it was implemented,
I see.
it was done administratively.
Okay.
So part of the answer to your question of what protection do you have, or what are the boundaries on your decision, I would say the comfort is you have to find comfort in the process. And if you follow the process appropriately and make the decision according to the process defined in law and in city code, then you'll reach a decision that's defensible.
Okay.
From my vantage, that's what you're looking for.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And
So the short answer is Blair and I have a lot of meetings and Jamie's going to be there and it's going to be expensive.
And that's what I wanted to make sure that we were willing to go down the road of doing that through a development agreement versus a code change, because I personally don't want to go develop, and I'll say the word that no one likes to hear is mixed use. And if we go to start down the road of developing a mixed use code, I mean, this room will be way more full than this right now. And everybody
Well,
knows
and
why.
we put pen to paper on a mixed use
I
zone
know
and
we-
had
I know
so
we
much
have.
trouble.
And and that's why I started my statement out with saying, or my comments out by saying, they're all different. We can't, there's no blanket for all of these properties. So we have no choice unless we're going to leave it to the underlying zone or divide it or parcel it or whatever. That's up to the owner and the developer to bring to us.
Yeah, so the council has tools to have this conversation. I don't want anybody to feel like we're stepping somewhere we shouldn't. We absolutely have a tool at our disposal for this type of situation. And
With all those numbers.
yeah, we've identified that, and this is just a step in that process. And to Jamie's point, it has to start with the council, where typically development doesn't start with the council because the council had already made a decision and handed that over to planning commission and staff to implement. In this case, that decision can't be made until there's a discussion with the developer.
Okay. Thank you.
Last thing, sorry. So there's the next,
So like,
is the next step to continue developing the language for the development agreement then?
I think ultimately the council needs two things, right? We said it, development plan and development agreement. So that concept, along with language for a development agreement, is what the council can then consider next.
Just clarifying. Okay.
As
so
part
that's
of
the next
that,
step is they'll come to us with a development agreement and a concept plan.
A concept plan, we have to come up with the development agreement.
yes,
correct?
Yes.
because
yes,
then once the development agreement is in place, that provides the direction for the planning commission and staff
Okay.
to then work with it and make it through the rest of that process.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Can we move on? All right. Next we have our transportation utility fee report, and either Brandon or Dave is going to do that for us. Which one of you?
I'll start and then Brandon can fix my mistakes.
And just make it
Okay.
short and to the point.
Short and to the point. Okay, watch this. Start it right now, okay? The city collects transportation utility fee that's earmarked specifically for street maintenance projects. In our last report last year at this time, we gave a report on all of the roads and all of the projects that have been completed with that. This report builds on that and just looks at the last period of time that we've done since that previous report. That will make it easy as we move forward. So are there any questions about the report?
Wow,
I'm
that
getting better.
was quick.
I'm getting better.
Do we have any questions by the council?
Brandon was waiting all night for this moment, and I took it from him.
Brandon, did you have anything to add?
I'm done.
Sure. I'll just point out that I'm pleased with the progress that we're making.
And whose fault is that? I mean, who's to take the credit for that?
No,
Fault?
nobody individually.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted the public to see what was going on and what those funds were being used for. So I appreciate the update.
Yes, we are definitely putting them to good use.
All right. Okay, next is the legislative review, and I'm not going to go through all this because it's a lot. I'm just going to touch on kind of what happened this last week. So with HB 82, which is the internal ADUs, the fourth substitute passed the House. And as of February 18th, the ULCT is neutral on that bill. So we can discuss that more later, but HB 98, which we talked about quite a bit tonight with Representative Miles, inspections and design element restrictions. Representative Ray is over that one. The first substitute, which they're proposing right now, working on right now, only applies to dwellings and townhomes for 1 to 2 families. It no longer includes commercial buildings, and this HB 98 is still in committee.
Mayor, may I interrupt you just real quickly?
You bet.
It is on for committee tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. So Councilman Albert says it's on for committee tomorrow at 4 p.m. The ULCT is neutral on this first substitute, if it's consistent with the framework as proposed. And so we're still waiting for that to come out. SB 61, which is the on and off premise digital sign equity by Senator Sandel. ULCT is working on a counter proposal saying that zoning allows and permits on-premise digital sign that is 100 plus square feet. Then a billboard in the contiguous or sharing a common border zone can upgrade to a digital. So if the on-premise digital sign is 100 plus square foot. So what they're saying is digital size and zoning equity equals a billboard upgrade, basically. SB 144 is another billboard restriction amendments by Senator Hinkins. This is a property rights issue. This bill has passed out of the Senate committee. 5 were for it, 2 opposed to it. ULCT is not negotiating on this one. They absolutely oppose this bill. And then SB 221, short-term rentals by Senator Anderegg. Municipality may not enforce an ordinance prohibiting short-term rentals if they are owner occupied. And they use tax revenue on a short-term rental website for enforcing an ordinance that prohibits the act of renting an STR. So municipalities may not do these 2 things. Okay, so they can't enforce an ordinance to prohibit the short-term rental if owner occupied, and they can't use tax revenue on a short-term rental website for enforcing an ordinance that prohibits acts of renting a short-term rental. This bill undermines both the 2017 compromise and the HB 82 fourth sub enforcement, and the ULCT opposes this bill as well. That's just a quick update. All right, let's go to new business. Anyone have any? I've got one. Do we have any idea, staff, when the dog park will be opening up, and is there ribbon cutting planned or anything like that?
Yeah, Blair's been asking me every day when you can cut a ribbon.
Yeah,
This chainsaw.
It looks pretty good.
Brandon,
as
do you have an
grass to me.
update on that?
I do not. I think, I'm not sure that we're ready to say when, because we want to make sure that the sod is all taken and
Mike,
we're not going to tear it up.
if I had to guess, if your water's coming on in mid-April, it will be after that point.
Sometime after mid-April?
Well, I mean, I would think
Yes,
they want to,
for sure after the irrigation water's on.
yeah, so it's going to be a little bit still.
Well, it gives us time to get the administrative rules approved before we actually open it.
The Parks Committee is working on that. There's rules drafted that.
I know they are. I just want to make sure the cart doesn't get before the whole.
Way ahead of you.
Thanks.
Okay.
I know you are.
All right. Any other new business?
Yeah. Thanks for providing that transportation utility fee update report that I've been asking for the last couple of years. It's appreciated. Hopefully we can have it annually. I also would like to ask if we can get an annual report on our water consumption. And I'd like to understand what our, for the citizens, what our contract water is, how much we're using of that contract water, if we're going over or below. How much of the well are we operating in a year? What quantity of water are we exercising the well often enough to be able to maintain our water rights? I also would like to understand how we doing as a community on our conservation goals. That was one of the things that came out with our water rate study. So it'd be good to be able to broadcast back to the public. This is how we're our gallons per capita today, actual versus our goal. Are we meeting the state's conservation goal? Not the 2001, but the 2020 update. So it'd be helpful if we could ask staff to be able to provide on an annual basis. The other item I would like to bring forward is, given the fact that the House Bill 82 did pass the House, has strong leadership support, and the governor's actually supported it. I think I would recommendation, I think it'd be wise if we start developing an ordinance with regards to auxiliary dwelling units, so that when it does become law, if it becomes law, we have something that we can then legislate.
Because we need to have it in place before it takes effect. Correct?
We can have a conversation about what elements of an accessory dwelling unit regulation we want to include. We can put that on a discussion item.
Do you want to,
or do you want to give a little bit of direction now that we could?
If it were my leadership decision, I would think we need to get a couple committee members together and start drafting an ordinance, or if you want staff to take a stab at it and then have it reviewed by a couple of council members. Either way, I think we need to look at what provisions have been given to us as a city. We can license. It is required that all ADUs get licensed. If they fail to license, I think it's like a $10,000 a day lien that can be put on the home. So it's very incentivized in that regard. There are some other definitions that says a single family unit, a city may define a single family unit as up to 4. I think we need to take the provisions that's been provided in that statute and put it to our best use so that we can then manage it. The other provision is you need to designate up to 75% of the area. You can keep 25% out that has ADUs, but you have to be able to let 75%. We need to talk about that. Is it a specific area? Is it global? There's enough things here that we have some time that we could work on it. I'd be happy to be part of that, or if staff wants to take a crack at it and then review it, I'll take either role that the mayor feels is the best approach.
I can do it.
It kind of sounds like code committee to me.
Code's got its hands full
I
right
think
now.
I think that was
working with Chapter
Angie's
10.
volunteer on that. She really wants to be on it.
Yeah, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing are nodding heads on whatever we can do within the scope of the new law we want to do.
Correct.
And so I would say Sherry and I ought to take a crack at drafting code language and then bringing it forward through the code committee.
I'd be happy to answer any questions as you develop that code.
Yeah, great. And
I think that's the best plan of attack.
Good. If any of you have,
Unless we want to have our legislative policy committee do it.
That just adds to the code committee.
Oh, yeah. We're the same. Hello.
So,
Good point.
We are
All right.
I think
You
that's the
choose.
best way.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. So you've got your direction.
I do have one item too, Mayor, if I may. I was just wondering, have you had a chance to meet with the Wasatch Front Regional Council on that road network yet, of removing it from their plan?
No,
Okay.
no, that hasn't happened yet.
Is that still planning to happen, or
Yes.
what's going on with that exactly?
Yes, absolutely. We did have a meeting scheduled that had to be rescheduled, so we're still working on that.
So the last that we heard was, Brandon suggested that keeping the north side of South Bench Drive, Old Fort Road, whatever it was, on the plan for grant purposes, but the south side removing. Is that what you're having your meeting about, or what is the meeting about exactly?
Yeah, the meeting is more than just that one item, but that one item is a major part of it. And the one item when I say that really is, here's our new general plan. Let's make sure that it shows up on the regional plan the same way that we've got it. And what that means is a collector road on the north side of South Weaver Drive, and then residential roads there on the south side of South Weaver Drive that do not connect up to Layton.
Okay. So after you have that meeting, we'll see that letter come to the council for final approval of it.
Well, no, not the letter itself. The communication is taking place as far as we've updated our general plan and here's the information. That has been communicated, but we wanted to set up a meeting to be able to talk through the details and answer questions about it. So I don't know the timeline as far as them making changes on their side so that their regional plans update to reflect that. Our changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just at one point in time, we had discussed the letter from the council going to them so that they know that the full council had support of removing that road. Are we not, is that not the plan now?
Well,
Send that.
yes, the letter, let me say it this way. The letter was not sent. The communication took place. The letter was not sent because it was gonna be given during the meeting. I know that sounds dumb. I can still send the letter. They know and they have the information. It'd be easy for me to send that at this point still. I can do that.
That'd be great.
That's just me not getting that sent off. We were trying to update some information to provide with the letter, and that is what and ultimately delayed it, is we wanted to talk through that information as part of the meeting. And so it's become two things into one that don't need to be one.
Okay. Okay.
So-
Yeah, if that could at least be sent. would be
That
great.
became
Thank
more
you.
messy than it needed to be for sure.
Thank
Well,
you.
I think the direction that what the council gave was to send the letter, and I don't think there's any reason why that letter can't be sent. Send the letter, and if you want to put in the letter, hey, we'd like to follow up with some further discussion, that's fine, but and that general plan was approved months ago. That letter should have been gone months ago.
Yeah.
I agree. My other question is, do we have a committee for this meeting with the Wasatch Front Regional Council, or who will be representing the city for that?
That was just going to be a staff meeting with them. If you want council representation in that meeting, that's fine.
It might not be a bad idea either, just so they can hear a perspective. Just knowing one of the phone calls I was on with the Wasatch Front Regional Council, it felt like they truly didn't understand where the citizens were and where the council was coming from. So it might be a good idea. I'd be happy to meet with them.
Okay.
I as well.
That might explain some of the responses we got from county commissioner.
Yeah. Do we need to inform Layton City about that change as well on the general plan? Since we were connecting to them and are not now.
Yeah, we can communicate with Layton.
And I already have done some of that, so they're aware that are.
I think if we could just send a letter to Layton and to Wasatch Front Regional, so they're both all on the same page and understand that, I think that would be beneficial.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
maybe it's a lack of sleep, but I hear we've kind of done some of that. We should have done some of that. I think we need to be very clear, at least from my perspective. It needs to be definitive. We need to be clear, not kind of clear. It's done. This is it, and move on. Not kind of, sort of. That language bothers me.
Sure.
I think it would just also be beneficial once it's been sent. It can be a reported item in the minutes of a meeting, so we know that has been done on what date, and we can easily reference that if there's any question from either party involved.
You bet. I'll
Thanks,
make
Dave.
it more clear.
I agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other new business? And we'll move to council reports. I already given legislative and COVID updates, so we'll go to Councilman Windsor.
Oh, I get to go first.
Mm-hmm.
Code committee. We're making progress, but we actually completed all the uses across all the commercial highway and commercial recreational zones. We've got most of the residential zones. We're just going to go back to the residential zones. We feel one more meeting should accomplish that. We're now thinking or discussing how to communicate this information with the general public. Not so much to get feedback, but at least educate them on what the information is, some of the philosophies behind development of the matrix, the definitions, as the planning commission then takes a hold of this and adds some value. We've given some assignments for Shari to take back to Sherry. I said Shari. Sherry.
It's okay. I've got a little punch card for you. You have
Yeah.
to buy me a steak. When
Oh, I won't buy you one. I'll just take one out of my freezer and cook it up for you. Best steak around. Yes, it is late. So one-liners are coming. I can see it already. I know it sounds like a broken record, but it is getting to that point where we're actually starting to get to the point where we're starting to put pencil to paper. But before we do, we think the actual written language is going to confuse more people than help explain it. So we want to use the matrix to definitions to explain where we're at and how we're going. There are some definitions that are defined, but they're not applied. And there's a rationale behind that. That needs to be explained to the public as to why do you have this definition, but it's not shown on some of the zones. Another aha is sometimes you look at the definitions where you apply it to, say, a commercial or a commercial highway. And then you start looking at where some of those general plan commercial highways are located. It's like, well, I don't think I want that particular commercial highway use at that particular zone. So there might be some dialogue that comes back to this council with regards to, we may want to consider some minor amendments in certain spot areas, not the whole general plan, with regards to the uses that we're allowing and where those uses are projected within our general plan, because some of them just don't line up. It may work in one area, but it doesn't work in any other. And so how do we just get rid of the use, or do we change the zone? Those are some of the bigger questions that might come back to the planning commission to help us wrestle with. But we are making progress.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wizard. Councilwoman Petty.
Thank you, Mayor. Wayne, we talked about our rules for the dog park months ago.
I know we did.
Okay.
We did, but we didn't approve them.
We're not done.
Okay.
Jamie's not done. Should I pass the buck?
Pass that buck.
But it will be forthcoming. Thank you for the reminder. As far as the park goes, the Canyon Meadows Park West project is still in bidding process, and that will end, we said 2 more weeks,
March 4th.
March 4th. And
Are those COVID 2 weeks or actual 2 months?
gosh,
Actual.
legitimately 2
4th.
weeks.
14 days.
Yes, March 4th, at which point then we have a committee to quickly review the bids, and then we will make recommendations on the contractors for that. Do you want to report on the YCC?
For it.
So YCC did a small service project where they created greeting cards for residents of the Peterson Farms and delivered them today. Yeah, so that was cute. It really brightened up some of these residents that have been locked up for a year. Just let that sink in, because that's a long time. So we will be having a retreat, probably not this year because of all the restrictions for COVID. So we look at doing that in September for the next fiscal year in our new youth city council. And then we are planning on doing the Easter egg hunt on the Monday night before Easter with food trucks. We are still figuring out logistics, but it will be at 6 o'clock sharp. If you blink, you will miss it, and we will not wait. Okay.
March 29th.
Where?
Yes.
Where will the Easter hunt be?
Oh, thank you for asking that, Wayne. It would be at Canyon Meadows Park. Thank you. That's all I have to report.
All right, thank you. Councilman Soderquist.
No major report, just a reminder, next week, we have our budget discussions and committee meetings, hopefully pulling together all the information for priorities this coming year.
Okay, thanks. Councilwoman Alberts.
As much as I would love to make this very long on Wayne's behalf, I have nothing to report.
Wow. All right, Councilman Halverson.
Well, I will try to make it brief. Public Safety Committee met, and Haley can fill in any gaps because I had to leave a little early, but we did discuss the digital sign and possible solutions, and we're meeting again on that. And we are going over every option available. We also discussed the paramedic transfer interlocal agreement. But I can't remember when that comes. Is that coming forward, Dave?
Yes, that'll come
Yeah,
forward.
so
and-
that is put in place with all of the involved, so in our county. And I think that's all I have to report.
All right.
I just wanted to respond to public comment about that on the digital sign and the money. Yes, that is the intention, is to make sure to review everything and know what we're doing before we even think of spending any money. So
Thank you. All right, Dave.
All of my items have been discussed.
Okay, Jamie, do you have anything? Sherry,
I don't have anything.
Brandon?
Nope.
All right, Lisa or Michelle, anything?
I only have one item. It's not a real surprise, but a new order came out from the Utah Supreme Court. They have extended no in-person meetings until June 30th at this point.
Oh. All right, when was the deadline before?
Until March.
Oh, I see.
So they've extended it down to June 30th.
June 30th.
Well, we still have electronic court.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other reports, then I will entertain a motion to go into closed session per UCA section 52-4-2051B to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we will move to closed session and we'll have